Chapter 795. Holy Sun, Ice Demon's whereabouts are unpredictable. I've been tracking him for several days and still haven't found him. Duguyunjin sighed softly. His thoughts were in a mess. For the first time in his life, he felt an inexplicable sense of helplessness. The fog in front of him was getting thicker and thicker. He was a 9th-grade divine emperor, the top divine envoy of the Xingzhou, but he couldn't extricate himself from it. It wasn't that Duguyunjin didn't think of returning to the sacred sect to ask the Divine Master for the reason. However, if the Divine Master wanted to call him back, he could have sent a message through the Divine Order. But he didn't. He only sent a message that the Holy Sun was born and that he was the sole decision-maker. What did this mean? It meant that the Divine Master didn't want Duguyunjin and the others to return to the central border. Regardless of the reason, Duguyunjin and the others wouldn't dare to disobey the Divine Master. Compared to the other 3 divine envoys, Duguyunjin had a better understanding of the Divine Master's methods. He must have been delayed by something important, so he ordered the Holy Sun to take charge of the sacred sect. Logically speaking, with the current power of the sacred sect, even if a pig held the divine order, no one would dare to be disrespectful to it. Moreover, the Holy Sun was the personal disciple of the Divine Master. His methods were incomparable. How could he be replaced so easily? Could it be that I'm thinking too much? Lord Divine Envoy, the matter of the Ice Demon is of great importance. Master sent me to the 4 borders in order to track down that person's tracks. Now, I have already ordered the other 3 divine envoys to head to the sea region together. You must not slack off. 3 days. I will give you 3 days to find the Ice Demon. Otherwise, I will punish you for slacking off. Ling Xiao snorted coldly, while Duguyunjin's face flashed with a hint of gloominess. Punish? Even the Divine Master wouldn't dare to punish me. Who do you think you are? But that was just that. Duguyunjin didn't dare to slack off. Seeing the Divine Order was the same as seeing the Divine Master. This was the iron law of the sacred sect. Moreover, the words, that person, were enough for him to guess many things. It seemed that the Holy Sun also knew many secrets about the sacred sect. Besides the Divine Master, he was the only one in the entire Xingzhou who knew these secrets. It seemed that the Holy Sun's identity couldn't be faked. Go search. Hurry up and search me. Come on. Qinling looked at Ling Xiao with a venomous expression. Clearly, he was somewhat impatient to see Ling Xiao fall into complete despair. However, just as he finished speaking, the first divine emissary's expression turned cold, and he slammed his palm down. Boundless golden light soared into the sky, and it seemed to contain an extremely mysterious order of the great Tao. Qinling's expression instantly turned sluggish. What the f***ck? Why do I feel like the Oracle isn't planning to search my soul, but to kill me? But that shouldn't be the case. Didn't he say that he would consign Ling Xiao to eternal damnation and make him regret and despair? Sir Oracle, I'm sure he's playing with you, although I don't know how he managed to foresee my plan in advance. But everything I said was true. This little pighead was obviously acting. Poochie. In the end, Qinling still couldn't figure out how he had lost. The moment the golden light fell, the young master Qinling died. Sometimes deep love was misplaced. From the very beginning, they were destined to be strangers. It was a rare encounter in life, but in the blink of an eye, it was another storm. Gulp. The remaining Qin clan elder's legs trembled, and his expression changed. He suddenly clapped his hands. Good kill. Good kill. I've long found this Qinling an eyesore. Ling. Master Ling Xiao. It has nothing to do with me, Qinling forced me. I'm just following orders. Tarnishing my reputation, you deserve to die. Ling Xiao stretched out his finger and waved it lightly. Between heaven and earth, the sound of a sword suddenly resounded. A ray of sword intent, like the chaotic light from the depths of the primordial chaos, tore through the sky and rushed down. Every strand of sword intent contained an extremely heavy Great Tao holy intent. Before that elder of the Qin clan could even react, he was smashed into pieces by Ling Zhao's 2 fingers. "Don't kill me! Don't kill me!" Bai Jing panicked. He knelt in front of Ling Xiao and begged loudly. At this moment, the tears on his face didn't seem to be fake. Apparently, he was really afraid that Ling Xiao would kill him. "You proved my innocence. Although you're a demon, you've done me a favor. If I kill you, how am I different from a demon? Although I've never joined the Saint sect, I've always reflected on the Saint sect's greatness. All living things are equal. I won't kill the innocent. You can go now." Ling Xiao waved his hand and said calmly. From the beginning to the end, Dugu Yunjin stood aside with a cold face. He didn't know what to say for a moment. Are all the young men nowadays so arrogant? I, a 9th grade divine emperor, haven't even spoken, and you're already acting on your own? Thank you, young master. Thank you, young master. Bai Jing jumped and ran towards the forest in the distance. Ling Xiao suddenly turned to look at the first divine envoy. "Lord Divine Envoy, you won't mind me acting on my own, right?" "Of course." Dugu Yunjin narrowed his eyes. Although he had ruled out the possibility of Ling Xiao pretending to be the Holy Son, he still felt a little uneasy when he saw the gentleness on this young man's face. It was as if there was another him hidden under Ling Xiao's gentleness. That him might be dark or ferocious. In short, it was the real him. Divine Master. Inexplicably, a golden-robed figure appeared in Dugu Yunjin's mind. How similar. "Divine Envoy, what's your next plan?" "A demon has appeared in the sea area. I'm going to the sea area to look for the demon." Dugu Yunjin's face had already regained its calmness. However, the moment he finished speaking, Ling Xiao suddenly smiled brightly and said, "May I have the honor to accompany you to the sea area to kill the demon?" You want to go with me?" Dugu Yunjin narrowed his eyes and thought for a while. Finally, he nodded and said, "Okay, you can go with me." To be honest, until now, he was still very wary of Ling Xiao. It was safe to have him under his control. "Thank you, Divine Envoy." Ling Xiao smiled faintly and followed Dugu Yunjin to the sea area. At the same time, in a remote mountain range in Nanjiang, Ling Xiao stood in front of an ancient forest with his hands behind his back. Behind him, Folded Shadow smiled seductively and put away the talisman in his hand. "My lord, the chess pieces have been placed. Where should we go now?" With Ling Xiao's Taoist body by Dugu Yunjin's side, he was confident that he could find the ice demon. Moreover, Ling Xiao would not only help him find the ice demon, but also give him an unexpected surprise. "Qin Chu, since you are a demon, you must be recognized by the Holy Church if you want to prove yourself as a demon. Only then can you be considered a real demon. After all, the Holy Church is an expert in eliminating demons from the Xingzhou. If they don't eliminate you, what kind of demon are you?" "I promised Qingshan that I would help him save Si. Let's go. It's time to fulfill my promise." Chapter 796. Chen Qingshan? Stacked Shadow was taken aback, but his eyes were filled with emotions. "Master, you are indeed worthy of your reputation. Although you are cruel to your enemies and scheming against the heavens and earth, you are loyal to your subordinates and do what you say. Isn't it a blessing to have such a master?" Of course, if Ling Xiao knew what Stacked Shadow was thinking, he would probably laugh himself to death. "I can save Gusier with a hammer. However, Chen Qingshan has yet to submit to me. Do I have to think of a way to deal with him?" At the south of Nanjiang, below a mountain shrouded in ghost fog, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the peak of the mountain. This was where the 1,000 Ghost Mountain sect was located. It was also where Gu Zhen and Chen Qingshan were hiding. The mountain was shrouded in black fog and dense clouds. One look at it and one would be terrified and not dare to enter. In particular, there was a trace of the power of a formation in the ghost fog. It was filled with a gloomy and evil intent. It was mysterious and unpredictable. However, just as Ling Xiao was about to walk to the peak of the mountain, the layers of fog suddenly dispersed. Two figures walked out from it and bowed deeply to him. Master! Ling Xiao had planted a soul seal on Gu Zhen, and he was now a true servant. Although Chen Qingshan had yet to submit completely, as long as Gu Si'er was in Ling Xiao's hands, or rather, if Ling Xiao could help him save Gu Si'er, he would not dare to have any thoughts of betrayal. Gui Wupu, that idiot, had already helped Ling Xiao to test the Son of Destiny. However, the Son of Destiny could not be truly controlled and could not be considered a qualified Son of Destiny. If Chen Qingshan did not submit today, there would only be one outcome. Heartless? So cruel? Chen Qingshan killed so many righteous cultivators. Am I not enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens by killing him? Shout, young master is righteous. Ling Xiao looked at the young man beside Gu Zhen. In the next moment, his eyes suddenly narrowed. Third grade divine marquis, 5,000 providence, nether een law, immovable divine body. In the short span of a month or so, the immortal mystic sect disciple had risen from trash to a top genius of the Xingzhou continent. Especially the god of hell physique, which was one of the strongest physiques in the ancient times. It was rumored that those who possessed such a divine body would be able to connect to the netherworld, break through yin and yang, and shake the heavens and the earth. As expected of the Chosen One, the scene in the immortal mystic sect was indeed the beginning of Chen Qingshan's immortal path. Only when one's heart is stubborn and becomes a demon for love can one be invincible in the world. She betrayed her sect and bore the name of a demon. Her lover died tragically at the hands of her master. The only senior sister who seemed timid and cautious was the initiator of all the disasters. In terms of wretchedness, I'm not targeting you. Qingshan, you're the most wretched of all the heavenly wills I've encountered. With such a background, if you don't rise up for me, who can you face? My lord, there are already tens of thousands of remnant souls in this pearl. Don't worry, I will definitely continue to work hard and strive to gather 1,000,000 souls as soon as possible. Chen Qingshan stretched out his hand and summoned the soul-sucking ghost pearl. Compared to the timid and gentle Chen Qingshan when they first met, the current Chen Qingshan could be called a demon in both appearance and character. Especially the coldness in his eyes. Even Ling Xiao felt a chill in his heart when he saw it. It was obvious that this chosen one had completely fallen into the demonic Tao in the midst of slaughter. In his eyes, there was no longer a distinction between good and evil. There was only endless slaughter, mountains of corpses and seas of blood, and the stubbornness in his heart. Of course, even without Ling Xiao, according to Chen Qingshan's model, he would still walk together with Gu Zhen and open a path of dual cultivation of Tao and demonic Tao. But now, not only did he cultivate the demonic Tao, he also cultivated a pure demonic heart. Oh, tens of thousands of remnant souls. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently and waved his hand. The soul-sucking ghost pearl flew over on its own and hovered above Ling Xiao's head, emitting thousands of evil lights. At this moment, Gui Wupu was already panicking inside the ghost pearl. Ever since he failed to instigate Chen Qingshan, he had been feeling uneasy. Once Ling Xiao knew what he did that day, he, the third successor of the Ghost Clan, would not even be able to be a ghost pearl anymore. It should be about time. Ling Xiao's lips curled into a playful smile. Chen Qingshan's originally cold face suddenly flashed with shock and anticipation. My lord! You mean, previously, I obtained a soul-type treasure in the sea domain. Perhaps I can try to revive Sierra, but Qingshan, Sierra's divine soul has been destroyed. Even if I use a secret technique to revive her, she might forget many things from her previous life. She might even not be like herself. Can you accept this? Ling Xiao sighed softly. His eyes flashed with vicissitudes of life. I can revive Gu Si'er, but this Gu Si'er, she is not the Gu Si'er you want. Of course, I have to say the ugly words first, so that you won't have any doubts when the time comes. Foolproof. This is the essence of the plan. Plop. Just as Ling Xiao finished speaking, Chen Qingshan suddenly knelt on the ground. His eyes were faintly red. My lord, as long as Xia can be revived, even if she forgets me, I will accept it. I only want her to be alive. As long as she is alive. Since that is the case, I will try my best. Ling Xiao nodded slightly. With a wave of his hand, he directly sent Chen Qingshan into the realm. It seemed that as long as this young man could pass the test of the Dream Demon, he would most likely be harvested today. Now that Ling Tian had obtained the Blood Emperor's inheritance, and Chen Qingshan's Tao heart had fallen to the devil and cultivated the body of the Nether King. With these two together, even if Ling Zhao's identity was exposed in the future, there would be a perfect scapegoat. Buzz! In the realm, Ling Xiao, Chen Qingshan, and the others descended from the sky and stood in front of an ancient forest. Qingshan, the secret technique I used can be said to be evil. It does not match my identity. So, you can understand, right? Open up your divine soul? Ling Zhao's face suddenly flashed with a look of difficulty. Chen Qingshan was stunned for a moment. Then, he nodded fiercely. I understand. My lord. He knew Ling Zhao's identity. The saint of the saint. Although until now, Chen Qingshan still did not understand how he worked together with Guzhen, but who cares? Perhaps in Chen Qingshan's eyes, the saint and the demonic sex had nothing to do with him. He only wanted Gu Xia to be alive. As long as she was alive, so what if he slaughtered the entire world? However, Ling Xiao was different. He was the saint of the saint, the light of the righteous path. Once the fact that he used evil techniques to save Gu Xia was exposed, it would be a disaster for him. It seemed, my lord, you are my benefactor. I cannot repay you in this life. I am willing to sacrifice my life to follow you, no matter whether Xia can be reborn or not. I will not erase your memory. I will only place some measures in your divine consciousness to prevent you from falling into the hands of others one day, my lord. You don't have to say anything. My life is yours. Why would I care about a mere divine soul? Before Ling Xiao finished speaking, Chen Qingshan had already smiled bitterly and shook his head. Chapter 797. All right. I'm glad that you can think this way. Ling Xiao sighed. Suddenly, a wisp of soul light flashed in his eyes and disappeared into Chen Qingshan's soul sea. First, he didn't plant a seal on Chen Qingshan. Second, he didn't erase his memory. Once a soul seal is planted on a destined person, he or she will lose their fate completely. As such, a deity overlord was of no value to Ling Xiao. Chen Qingshan, Phoenix Rouge, Han Qingqiu, and the others, Ling Xiao tried so hard to make them submit to him. Did you think it was for convenience? The path of conquering the heavens was full of dangers. Ling Xiao didn't have to face an ancient god or a powerful being. He had to face the entire immortal race. Whoever had more pawns would have a higher chance of winning. Of course, not everyone was qualified to walk with Ling Xiao. Only those with monstrous talent, powerful models, and true immortal beauty would have a chance to become Ling Xiao's slave and forge this path of conquering the sky demon. What? Qin Chu? Qin Chu's talent was good. However, he had to die in this situation. If he didn't die, Wen Ruyu and the others wouldn't go crazy. How could he become Ling Xiao's blade to kill Duguyunjin? If he couldn't even take this step, how could he fight against the heavens and slay the immortals? In the end, these destined people all had their own responsibilities. It was just that the timing of their actions was different. As for why Ling Xiao planted a seal in Chen Qingshan's soul sea, it wasn't to control him. It was to guard against the dream demon. Judging from the dream demon's behavior that day, she didn't care about life and death. A demon that didn't fear death was the most difficult to control. Ling Xiao didn't even know what she would do. Moreover, the dream demon had always been looking for someone who was infatuated with her. Chen Qingshan might be the one she wanted. Do you think she'll be touched by Chen Qingshan and expose Ling Zhao's identity? Or perhaps, Chen Qingshan's Dao heart wasn't as resilient as Ling Xiao had imagined. If he were to be destroyed by the dream demon, wouldn't he be killed on the spot? Therefore, Ling Xiao had left his soul consciousness, the sky demon imprint, in Ling Zhao's soul sea. The moment the dream demon made a move, Ling Xiao would be able to sense it and react in an instant. Even if Chen Qingshan knew about all the schemes, and Ling Xiao could also condense this wisp of soul consciousness into a seal, a deity overlord might not be of much use to him, but he couldn't afford to waste the 5,000 providence. At that time, I'll make him the scapegoat and kill him. That would be making the best use of him. My lord, when do you plan to save Sir? Chen Qingshan's eyes were filled with anticipation. It was clear that whether it was slaughter or becoming a demon, to an immortal sect disciple, both were painful things. However, for the sake of the obsession in his heart, he silently endured everything. Gusir was where his Dao heart was. In the next day, I will make some preparations. You can cultivate here. With that, Ling Xiao turned and walked into the distance. However, Chen Qingshan bowed deeply to the figure that was gradually disappearing and didn't get up for a long time. When Ling Zhao's figure disappeared into the horizon, a gentle smile suddenly appeared on Chen Qingshan's face. Dugu Yunjin had already gone to the sea. In order to make everything seem natural, Ling Xiao didn't immediately tell Shi to reveal any flaws. Ling Xiao could afford to wait for 1 or 2 days. Come out. In the 6th level of the Glaze ancient pagoda, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back, looking indifferent. Lord Sky Demon, have you found the so-called infatuated person? The dream demon's figure walked out from the darkness. There was a hint of mockery on her beautiful face. A woman becoming a demon had always been like this. That's right. Since the day she was betrayed by her lover, life and death were meaningless. She lived so that she could find the infatuated person. However, after hundreds of years and endless dreams, in the end she became a demon due to her love. In the end, her evil deeds were exposed and she was suppressed here. Just like that, after hundreds of years, her demonic heart gradually calmed down and she lost interest in the mortal world. So what if she was imprisoned? So what if she walked out of the cage? After all, in the 9 heavens and 10 earths, she no longer cared about anything. Her heart was imprisoned and heaven and earth were her cage. The path of immortality was eternal and prosperous like a dream. Empty but lonely. His name is Chen Qingshan. He is in the ancient forest below. Since you are the dream demon, you must have ways to test his sincerity. Ling Zhao's expression was cold. He directly broke open the Glaze ancient pagoda and let the dream demon out. I am a person who values promises the most. Although you are not afraid of death, I have 70,000 ways to make your life worse than death. So, you better remember what you promised me. The breath of freedom. Hearing this, the dream demon ignored him. She raised her head and closed her eyes, allowing the sunlight to shine on her face. Then, she took a deep breath. Honestly speaking, this dream demon was extremely beautiful. However, he was not a stud horse who loved everyone he saw. To Ling Xiao, both she and Chen Qingshan were just pawns. There was no difference. Today, he tied the two of them together to better control them. He wanted them to do their jobs. I will give you 1 day. Go. Ling Xiao looked at the dream demon calmly. Then, he disappeared from where he stood. The dream demon stood where she was and did not move for a long time. To be honest, she was hesitant. Since she was already out of the pagoda, should she run away? However, when she thought of the demonic light in Ling Zhao's eyes, the dream demon felt fear. 70,000 ways to make her life worse than death. Oh well, let's go see what this sky demon is planning. Infatuated person? Are there really people in this world who are infatuated? I don't believe it. Buzz. In the ancient forest, Chen Qingshan's expression suddenly turned sluggish. At this moment, he felt sleepy and fell into a deep sleep. With the dream demon's strength, it was easy for her to make a divine overlord fall asleep. The dream demon naturally saw the obsession in Chen Qingshan's heart. At this moment, her heart was inexplicably moved. On the ancient peak of Green Mountain, the sun hung high in the sky. The mountain breeze was gentle and comfortable. Chen Qingshan looked at the beautiful figure in front of him in a daze. His eyes were filled with surprise. Qingshan, how am I inferior to her? Didn't you say that you will repay me for saving your life? Why do you have to humiliate me like this? The dream demon was dressed in red and wore a golden crown. Her face was filled with tears. Everything in front of her was a dream that she created for Chen Qingshan. In this dream, she was Chen Qingshan's savior. She was also the saintess of the most powerful sect in this world. As for Chen Qingshan, he was just a disciple of a small sect. He was called a demon and witnessed Gu Xi-Er's death. He accidentally fell off the cliff and was saved by the dream demon. In terms of beauty, the dream demon was better. In terms of strength and background, she was the only one in the 9 heavens. Now, she pretended to be infatuated and used this dream to confuse Chen Qingshan's Tao heart. She believed that this divine overlord would be mesmerized by her beauty and status. He would become another sacrifice for the dream demon. You are Yuan Jin? Chen Qingshan's eyes were filled with confusion. Although everything in front of him was the dream demon's plan, everything in this dream was real. Furthermore, with the dream demon's cultivation, she could make Chen Qingshan fall into an endless dream and fall into it forever. Qingshan, you still can't forget her, right? Even though 10 years have passed, you still can't forget her. The dream demon broke down and cried. Even Chen Qingshan's eyes were filled with sorrow. 10 years? So, Xi'er has been gone for 10 years. Chapter 798. Qingshan, is it so difficult to forget her? It has been 10 years. I have accompanied you day and night and helped you become a god emperor with the power of my sect. If you want, I will help you destroy the immortal mystic sect. Okay? As long as you are willing to be my husband. Meng Mo's eyes flashed with coldness. Her lips curled into a mocking smile. Did you see that? Men are all the same. No matter how much they pretend to love each other, they will be shaken when they meet another beautiful woman. Moreover, Gu Xi had been dead for 10 years. Everything that Chen Qingshan had now was given to him by Meng Mo. Is it so difficult to make this choice? God Emperor? Chen Qingshan clenched his fist. As expected, he felt a surging spiritual aura in the sky. I have become a god emperor. But what is the point? Yuan Jin, I am sorry. I cannot do it. You are very good, but I have always treated you as my senior sister. I do not have any other thoughts. Chen Qingshan sighed. Scenes appeared in front of his eyes. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. Today was supposed to be the day his master arranged the marriage between him and Yuan Jin. However, he rejected it in the main hall just now. As a result, Yuan Jin, the proud girl, became the joke of this world. At this moment, Chen Qingshan could not bear it. He was sad. Especially in the past 10 years, Yuan Jin had been so considerate to him. However, he could not let her go. Gu Xi, even though 10 years had passed, he could not forget the smile on the girl's face before she died. It was as if a knife had cut his heart and a needle had pierced his bones. He could not forget it. He could not go back. He could not walk out. Do you have the heart to see me become the joke of the entire sect? Chen Qingshan, you have the heart to destroy my reputation and ruin my cultivation for a dead woman? Meng Mo screamed in despair. Her eyes were filled with tears. There was blood at the corner of her mouth. She looked very miserable. Senior sister. Chen Qingshan. You are so cruel. Which part of me is inferior to Gusir? As long as you agree to be my cultivation partner and marry me, the position of sect master will be yours sooner or later. At that time, you will be the real master of this world. Why do you want to be obsessed with the past and ruin your future? Is it worth it for a demoness who is reviled by everyone? Mengemo tried her best to persuade him. But in the end, although there was pain in Chen Qingshan's eyes, there was no greed. She's not a witch. The misunderstandings of the world towards her were only because the world's eyes were cloudy. Senior sister, I'm sorry. I've always treated you as my family. But, don't mention the matter of being my Dao companion again. If you make things difficult for me, I will leave the sect today and never appear again. Chen Qingshan sighed and bowed deeply to Dream Demon. Senior sister, take care. Stop right there. Dream Demon shouted angrily, but there was a hint of admiration in the depths of his eyes. This young man was rather interesting. Status, beauty, and fortune were all unable to shake his heart? But even so, Meng Mo didn't believe that there would be someone in this world who would be so infatuated. Loyalty was just a matter of not having enough bargaining chips for betrayal. Senior sister, Chen Qingshan shook his head sadly. Good. Since you're so infatuated, then return everything I've given you to me. In this world, it is easy to go from frugality to extravagance, but difficult to go from extravagance to frugality. Sometimes it was much easier to pick something up than to let it go. All right. However, Dream Demon was still disappointed. Chen Qingshan didn't even frown. He took off his Qiankuan bag, spiritual treasure, and even his clothes and placed them in front of Dream Demon. Senior sister, are you satisfied? Your cultivation was also imparted to you by my father. You. Puchi. Before Dream Demon could finish her words, Chen Qingshan's palm had already pierced into his danci. Fresh blood flowed down from the corner of his mouth. It was a ghastly sight. His cultivation of the God-Emperor realm dissipated in an instant. Although this was Dream Demon's dreamland, but to Chen Qingshan, everything was real. To be honest, at this moment, Dream Demon's heart was trembling. After thousands of years of searching, she had seen countless talented people with supreme cultivation. But none of them were as stubborn as the young man in front of her. But it was precisely this stubbornness that made Dream Demon feel inexplicably shocked. Status, beauty, and even cultivation achievements, in his eyes, were not as good as a trace of stubbornness in his heart. A demon sect woman who had died 10 years ago, and a senior sister who had accompanied him for 10 years. Was this choice really that hard to make? Or could it be that I have already forgotten the pain in my heart? Have I forgotten the stubborn me in the past? Have I only thought that in this eternal immortal path, all that is left is to fight for fame and gain? Suddenly, Mengemo couldn't bear it anymore. His heart was filled with sorrow. She seemed to have seen herself in Chen Qingshan. Senior sister, she is not a demon. Chen Qingshan grinned. His white teeth were stained with blood, making him look bleak and lonely. You are crazy. Senior sister, take care. Looking at the figure that turned around and walked alone, looking at his bumpy footsteps, his thin figure, and the sorrow that was emitted from him, for the first time in hundreds of years, Dream Demon's heart softened. Even if everything was just a dream, but she still could not bear to continue hurting this young man. But, thinking of the demonic intent in Ling Zhao's eyes, Dream Demon sighed softly in her heart. Stop. Senior sister? At the end of the mountain path, Chen Qingshan stopped and turned around with difficulty. The mountain wind blew past, causing his blood-stained green robe to flutter in the wind. On that clean and simple face there was no resentment. In fact, there was even a pale smile on his face. It was obvious that even though Dream Demon had deliberately made things difficult for him, he still did not hate her. They had accompanied each other for 10 years. They had never fallen in love, but he was grateful. Since you don't know what's good for you, then forget it. I saved your life. Now return it to me. Dream Demon took a deep breath. Unknowingly, she also felt a trace of pain in her heart. It was not that she did not trust Ling Xiao, but she really could not trust him. With the demonic intent in his body, it was too easy for him to control someone. Everything in this dream was fake, except for one's life. Once Chen Qingshan died in the dream, he would truly die. This was why Dream Demon was so scary. It was hard to predict what was real and what was fake. No matter how strong one's cultivation was, as long as they entered her dream, their fate would be under her control. Senior sister, Chen Qingshan's face suddenly flickered with hesitation. It was this hesitation that made Dream Demon's pain disappear. After all, in this long journey of immortality, how many people did not want to live forever? Everything was empty. The path of life was empty. Only death was the true death of one's Tao. Why? Can't bear to? Now, you still have a chance to return to my side. As long as you agree to marry me, everything I promised will still be yours. The pain in Dream Demon's heart disappeared, but she also felt an inexplicable sense of loss. However, in the end, her lips curled into a beautiful arc compared to the sadness just now. There was only coldness in Dream Demon's eyes. No, my life should be yours. It's just that Seer's death has not been avenged. I'm not satisfied. If senior sister cares about our past relationship, please give me 10 years. After 10 years, no matter what, I will kill myself in front of senior sister. Chen Qingshan shook his head and said with determination. You? Is it really just because of hatred? There is no need for 10 years. I promise you that if you kill yourself now, I will avenge you. Dream Demon did not believe him. Or rather, she had heard enough lies. However, just as she finished speaking, she saw a bright smile blossom on the face of the mountain youth. If that's the case, I am relieved. Chapter 799. Spiritual wind whistled on the ancient path of the Green Mountain. The originally clear sky suddenly turned gloomy. Chen Qingshan suddenly raised his palm and slammed it down on the top of his head. Even though his cultivation was gone, his palm was still filled with determination and no regrets. Qingshan. She called out Qingshan instinctively. Or rather, Meng Mo's Tao heart was suddenly in chaos. Especially the youth's bright face. It was like a flower on the other side of reincarnation, blooming with sadness and recalling the past. He believed in me. So much so that a promise from me could make him kill himself without hesitation. He really doesn't love me. Guxier, I really envy you. Heaven and earth began to collapse. The mountains, rivers, sun, and moon turned into nothing. Even the beautiful red-clothed figure at the end of the mountain path disappeared at any time. In the end, before Chen Qingshan's palm could land, everything in front of him had been destroyed. In the ancient forest, Chen Qingshan opened his eyes in a daze. His expression was filled with confusion. Just now, he seemed to have entered a very strange state. However, he could not remember what happened. You better leave this place quickly. Until a gentle female voice came from the ancient forest. Chen Qingshan turned his head and looked over. His eyes suddenly focused. It was a very familiar appearance and a very familiar voice. However, he could not remember when he had seen it before. Who are you? No matter why you are here, leave now. The further, the better. I will do my best to stop him for you. Meng Mo raised her head and looked into the distance. At this moment, she could feel a wisp of demonic intent quietly approaching. Why should I leave? Chen Qingshan was even more confused. He frowned slightly. However, Meng Mo's figure had already disappeared. Chen Qingshan. Even if it's for Guxier, leave now. Quickly. For Seer? How does she know about Seer? Chen Qingshan's expression turned serious. Demonic intent gradually flowed around him. For a moment, he felt that this woman was very close to him. However, who was she? Suddenly, demonic light bloomed in the blue sky. Then, endless golden light rushed into the sky and turned into a formation that covered the sky. Mengemo looked at the 10 dragon shadows around her in shock. For the first time, a hint of seriousness appeared in her beautiful eyes. Although Ling Zhao's devil intent was so terrifying that even his cultivation level was concealed. But in the end, his age could not be concealed. Even if he was the reincarnation of the Sky Demon and had heaven-defying talent, in the eyes of the Dream Demon, it should not be difficult for her to trap him. Unlike the great demons of this world, the Dream Demon did not pursue the true meaning of the demonic Tao, nor did he pursue the 9 heavens. She only wanted to find one person to depend on in life and death. Therefore, be it the Sky Demon or the Sky God, they were not much of a threat to her. I'm a demon, and I fear your aura. But now, I have something I want to protect more than my own life. In this world, there was nothing that could not be broken. It was just that the price of the bargaining chip was not enough. Everyone's desires were different. However, in the end, all of them were greedy. Looks like you really want to help him. Ling Zhao's eyes were gentle, but the sinister smile on his lips caused Nightmare's heart to turn cold. But as I said before, I don't like people who don't keep their promises. Lord Sky Demon, I admit that I broke my promise first. But this time, I don't want to back down. The Dream Demon's tone was calm. The moment she finished speaking, her figure suddenly turned into a curtain of night and enveloped Ling Zhao. Thousands of Taoist rhymes surged endlessly, and endless visions circulated around her body. There seemed to be the changes of mountains and rivers, the rise and fall of the sun and moon, and all kinds of things that flowed endlessly. There were 10,000 kinds of dreams that appeared in front of Ling Zhao's eyes. However, at this moment, not only was there no trace of hesitation on his face, there was even a hint of playfulness. Regardless of whether it was a dream or an illusion, they were all spirit technique. In the Xingzhou system, apart from the Divine Master who had stepped into the Venerable Realm, who dared to say that they could suppress Ling Zhao in terms of spirit, there were some things that had to be done personally in order to have the desired effect. For example, a sense of security or deterrence. In other words, whether it was showing off or setting up a trap, they were all methods to obtain benefit. There was no need to be too stubborn. Boom! Just as the Dream Demon's figure turned into a 10,000-foot-tall curtain of soul that enveloped the world and was about to trap Ling Zhao in a dream, a wisp of demonic will suddenly drifted between heaven and earth. Then, the ancient great demon watched in horror as the young man in front of her disappeared without a trace. The world in front of her instantly changed and turned into endless darkness. At the end of the darkness, there seemed to be a majestic soul palace. It was dark and tall, and it pierced through the clouds. The soul palace was about 10,000 feet tall, and it was majestic and ancient. Above the palace, a demonic sun evolved into primordial chaos. It contained 3,000 Taoist rhymes, and every wisp of it contained an aura that could suppress and destroy the world. Gulp. Even though the Dream Demon already knew how terrifying Ling Zhao was, she still felt a chill under the illumination of the demonic sun. He said that there were 70,000 ways to make her suffer a fate worse than death. She was afraid that he was not joking. The Dream Demon did not exist in the 6 paths of the 3 realms. Her soul was independent of yin and yang, and she relied on the dreams of living beings to cultivate and survive. But now, she did not know whether she had entered the young man's dream or was trapped in an illusion. Especially the aura of destruction that was spreading from the demonic sun. It was like the greatest horror in the world. Once she fell into it, she was afraid that she would be consigned to eternal damnation. You use dreams as your realm and kill people without leaving a trace. But I never dream. Under the demonic sun, a slender figure slowly appeared above the soul palace. His black robe was fluttering, and his aura was unparalleled. He stood in the void, and it was as if heaven and earth had submitted to him. The demonic sun was in the sky, and he could kill all with a thought. To be honest, the dream demon was even more shocked and terrified than when she saw Chen Qingshan. The sky demon was not tolerated by the 9 heavens. How did this young man grow to such a level? Lord Sky Demon, I will not kill you. I said that I will make you suffer a fate worse than death. Ling Zhao's face was extremely indifferent. From the beginning, he knew where the dream demon's weakness was. Chen Qingshan was just a means for him to control this demon. In other words, if the two met, Ling Zhao would not only be able to get Chen Qingshan to submit to him, but he would also be able to completely control this great demon. Forcefully implanting a soul imprint could indeed make her become Ling Zhao's slave. However, this demon was not afraid of death and was proficient in the Tao of mind reading. If she wanted to die, Ling Zhao might not be able to make her stay. However, for all living things, once they were tied down, they would also have weaknesses. The dream demon's actions just now had proved that she admired and cared about Chen Qingshan. So, why would she not be willing to fall into it? Lord Sky Demon, I am willing to bear all the consequences. I only beg you, I will not kill you, but I will personally pull out Chen Qingshan's tendons and skin him alive. I will turn him into a puppet. I will make him kill all living things in this world and be cursed by all living things. Ling Zhao smiled gently. His eyes were calm, but his words made the dream demon's expression change drastically. She turned pale with fear. No, Lord Sky Demon. I was wrong. I beg you don't. Chapter 800. Wrong? Everyone in this world will make mistakes, but they still have to bear the consequences. Ling Zhao descended from the sky. His black robe looked like it was made of the night sky. Dark runes flowed with golden light, making him look mysterious and otherworldly. Lord, as long as you let Chen Qingshan go, I'll do anything you ask. After hundreds of years of searching, Meng Mo was already disappointed in love. But today she saw her past self in a deity overlord ant. Love shook the 9 heavens, but she had no regrets. That's right, he didn't love her, but Meng Mo had found the answer in her heart. Open your spirit and be my servant. Not only will I not hurt him, but I'll also give you a great opportunity. Ling Zhao smiled indifferently. The soul light in his eyes was like the scorching sun, illuminating the entire soul sea. A great opportunity? Meng Mo's face froze. She didn't understand what this opportunity was. In the end, her talent was to create dreams. Only in dreams could she get everything she wanted. But a living being's dream only lasted for a moment. No matter how beautiful a dream was, it was not real and could be easily broken. Meng Mo didn't want Chen Qingshan to be trapped in an illusion forever. Since that was the case, how could there be an opportunity? Lord, I've said it before. I'm a person who keeps his promises. Ling Zhao's eyes turned cold. Meng Mo didn't dare to say another word. She had exposed herself today. Even if she didn't want to, there was no way out. Meng Mo had no choice but to believe him. Buzz! As a wisp of spirit light disappeared, Meng Mo felt thousands of seals in her soul sea. They disappeared without a trace. She wasn't from the Xingzhou continent, so she naturally knew about spirit seals. But as far as she knew, only the ghost race knew such a secret and evil art. Even she, with her unparalleled soul power, could only create dreams and make people believe their dreams were real. Although such a method was terrifying, it was fundamentally different from spirit seals. When did the Sky Demon, the #1 overlord in the 9 heavens, master such an evil art? Yuanjin greets my lord. But in the end, Dream Demon couldn't figure out the reason and could only bow. To her, ascending to the 9 heavens was meaningless. She just wanted to figure out what Ling Zhao's so-called opportunity was. This physical body belongs to Gu Xi'er. Because of her, Chen Qingshan fell to the demonic side and his personality changed drastically. Now, he is in so much pain that he wishes he was dead. Since you are looking for someone who is infatuated with you, why don't you replace her and spend the rest of your life with Chen Qingshan? Ling Xiao put down Gu Xiao's corpse and said calmly. This, to be honest, Yuan Jin was a little conflicted. She admired Chen Qingshan and was even willing to become enemies with the sky demon for this deity overlord ant because she saw the obsession in Chen Qingshan's heart. That kind of sincerity was truly moving. However, from start to finish, Yuan Jin had never thought of replacing Gu Xia. But now, Ling Xiao had planted a soul imprint in her, so her thoughts were all under his control. Even if he refused, it would be useless. Yes, Master. Yuan Jin nodded slightly, a look of determination in her beautiful eyes. Especially when she thought of Chen Qingshan's loneliness in the dream, she felt an inexplicable heartache. To put it nicely, Yuan Jin was controlling the fate of others by using the dream as a realm. But in the end, wasn't she also an illusion in the dream? In the end, Yuan Jin's figure disappeared, and Gu Xiao'er suddenly opened her eyes. Buzz. A vast aura instantly surged out. Originally, Gu Xiao'er was only a deity overlord, but now that Yuan Jin had taken over her body, her strength had reached the level of a deity emperor. Go. From today onwards, Yuan Jin will no longer exist in this world. You are Gu Xiao'er. Ling Zhao's eyes were cold, and his figure suddenly disappeared. The scene in front of Yuan Jin's eyes changed, and she returned to the domain. At this moment, her face was somewhat blank and hesitant. She lowered her head and looked at her new physical body, then turned around and flew towards the ancient forest below. In the dream just now, she had seen the various moments between Chen Qingshan and Gu Xia. Therefore, it was easy for Yuan Jin to take over this girl's identity. And this was the reason why Ling Xiao dared to secretly replace her. After all, Chen Qingshan and Gu Xia had only met twice. Although they had feelings for each other, they did not completely understand each other. It was just that Gu Xiao's tragic death had completely shattered Chen Qingshan's Dao heart, causing him to become obsessed and become Ling Zhao's pawn. Now, Yuan Jin had seen their past through the dream, so it was naturally easy for her to play this role again. Moreover, Ling Xiao had already warned Chen Qingshan that even if Gu Xia was revived, she might lose part of her memories. This way it would be flawless. Above the ancient forest, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back, quietly looking at the two people who were looking at each other from afar. At this moment there was no change in his expression. The reason why he had set up all this was to make Chen Qingshan submit to him completely, to gain the system's recognition, and to become his servant. As for Yuan Jin, she was no longer a threat with the soul imprint in her body. These two people met because of love, and because of love, they fell into Ling Zhao's trap and were consigned to eternal damnation. Xiao'er? Chen Qingshan stood at the edge of the ancient forest, looking at the beautiful figure descending from the sky and blinking his eyes fiercely. At this moment, Yuan Jin had intentionally concealed her aura, and with Chen Qingshan's strength, he naturally could not sense that she was a third-stage god-emperor. Qingshan. Gu Xia looked haggard, but there was a trace of radiance at the corner of her mouth. With her dream demon technique, she had been acting as the nightmare in the hearts of others for hundreds of years, so, in terms of acting, she had reached the point of perfection. Xiao'er. It's really you. Master didn't lie to me. Master really didn't lie to me. Sir. Chen Qingshan's body trembled slightly, and the original coldness on his face disappeared, turning into a gentle and expectant look. He was very afraid that this was another dream. But even if it was a dream, he was willing to sink into it and never wake up. It's me. Qingshan. I'm back. Yuan Jin took light steps and walked in front of Chen Qingshan, looking a little reserved. Xiao'er. I don't want to be separated from you again. Never again. Chen Qingshan opened his arms and hugged Yuan Jin into his embrace, his eyes filled with tears. But when he felt the coldness from the girl, His eyes suddenly flashed with a hint of surprise, but he did not ask anything in the end. If I'm willing to enter the dream, what I see and what I think will all be real. Beep. The child of destiny has completely submitted. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 1,000 luck points and 10,000 villain points. Beep. The child of destiny has submitted. The host has obtained additional rewards. 2% Destiny Forging Points, 1 8th grade Origin Spirit Pill, 1 chance to perfect the Tao laws. He finally submitted. Ling Xiao lowered his head and looked at the jade-white pill in his hand, which was overflowing with spiritual light and Tao patterns. It seemed to contain immortal essence, and then he casually stuffed it into his mouth. Since that's the case, it's time to meet that hidden great demon. Buzz! But just as Ling Xiao was about to turn and leave, in the depths of the realm, there was suddenly a buzzing sound that spread for thousands of miles. A demonic cloud covered the sky, covering thousands of miles. Among it there was a vague demonic figure that seemed to have stepped through time, standing tall in the sky. Chapter 801. Is that Meng Yuan? Ling Xiao raised an eyebrow, but his lips curled into a playful smile. He took a step forward and disappeared from where he stood. In the forest deep in the territory, Meng Yuan was sitting cross-legged quietly. The pain and despair on her face had disappeared. Her eyes were closed. Black and gold colors were swirling around her body, trying to devour each other. At the same time, a terrifying demonic aura spread out and enveloped the entire forest. Ling Xiao's figure descended from the sky. His eyes were filled with astonishment as he looked at the blurry demonic figure. The energy waves on Meng Yuan's body were extremely chaotic. It was obvious that the demonic aura he had placed on her body had gradually eroded the Divine Master's seal. She is indeed a demon. However, Ling Xiao did not look happy at all. Instead, he looked confused. If Meng Yuan was a demon, why would the Divine Master take her in as his disciple and put in so much effort to seal her demonic aura and bloodline? The seal was complicated and mysterious. Even for the heavenly demon demonic will, it had taken several months to corrode it before there was a crack. In other words, even if the Divine Master's cultivation was unparalleled, he must have paid a huge price to set up the seal. However, given his temperament, why would he spend so much effort to control a divine lord? Moreover, from what Meng Yuan had said, Ling Xiao knew that the Divine Master had spent more than 200 years to set up the seal. Hundreds of years, just to hide Meng Yuan's identity? No one would believe that there wasn't the slightest bit of a secret behind this. As for Meng Yuan's claim that the Divine Master had done it to strengthen her divine body, Ling Xiao did not believe a word of it. An Empyrean that even the 4 divine messengers did not trust was willing to spend so many years to hide the demon's identity and hand over the power of the sacred sect to her. Could it be that Meng Yuan was really the Divine Master's illegitimate daughter? Ling Xiao looked up at the terrifying demonic figure hidden under the layers of demonic aura. The demonic figure was not clear yet. It looked like a human but had a long tail. Clearly, it wouldn't be long before the mystery surrounding Meng Yuan was completely uncovered. Moreover, Ling Xiao had a feeling that the moment the seal in Meng Yuan's body was broken, the identity of the Divine Master would be revealed. In the end, Ling Xiao did not disturb Meng Yuan's cultivation. He lifted his foot and headed towards the Sky Hall. Now that he was back, it was time to test Han Qingqiu and the others on their progress in cultivating the profound yin-yang divine formula. However, just as he spread out his divine sense in an attempt to find the traces of the women, his expression suddenly froze. At this moment, the auras of Phoenix Rouge and the others were no longer in the Sky Hall. Instead, they were scattered all over the realm. Even Han Qingqiu was hiding by the great swamp of the east. Could it be that these women had a conflict in the past few days? Ling Xiao frowned slightly, and his figure instantly disappeared. After the Phoenix Rouge's plan, the realm was divided into 4 parts. The Blood Hall was located to the north of the Sky Hall, the Medicine Hall to the northwest, the Dark Hall to the east, and the Great Swamp to the south. The 3 demon halls were in charge of their own affairs, and they did not disturb each other. As for the Sky Hall, it was located in the center of the realm. It enjoyed the 10 dragons' fate chi, and it was in charge of the 4 directions. From the looks of it, the power of the entire realm was beginning to take shape. It would not be long before the name of the Supreme Demon Palace resounded throughout the universe. When Ling Zhao's figure appeared in the void, he looked at the 10,000 figures in front of the Blood Hall, as well as Ning and Xiao Beifa, who were standing in front of the crowd. At this moment, everyone's aura was extremely stable. They sat cross-legged on the ground, and thousands of battle intents gathered in the air, turning into battle shadows. An ancient and terrifying aura descended from the sky, crushing all directions and intimidating everyone. Even with Ling Zhao's temperament, he felt a chill in his heart when he sensed the aura. Although the 10,000 blood guards were mostly in the Divine Lord realm, after being tempered by the Thunder Sun, their combat power was terrifying. Especially now that Ling Xiao had taught them the god-slaying battle formation, and the combined power of 10,000 people to form it, one could imagine how ferocious it was. However, what surprised Ling Xiao was not the strength of the blood guards, but the petite figure sitting quietly in front of them. At this moment, Ning Er's aura seemed to have merged with the battle formation. In front of her, the crimson gold halberd shone brightly, turning into a divine figure that stood in the sky, looking down on everyone. First-grade Divine Lord Realm, 4,000 Providence Point. In just 1 month, this little girl's power had undergone a drastic change. No wonder the Providence Points in the system have increased so quickly. Ling Zhao's lips curled into a smile as he descended from the sky and landed in front of everyone. As if she felt his aura, Ning frowned and opened her beautiful eyes. A ray of golden light pierced through the void, piercing through time, and arrived in front of Ling Xiao in an instant. Ling Zhao's smile widened, and the demonic intent in his eyes flowed, easily blocking the spiritual aura. However, at this moment, he was somewhat shocked. Just now, he clearly felt that Ning Er's aura seemed to contain a trace of primitive Tao intent. Brother! When she saw who it was, the annoyance on Ning Er's face turned into joy. She turned into a shadow and threw herself into Ling Zhao's arms. At this time, the white short skirt she was wearing only covered the bottom of her legs, so her pair of slender jade legs wrapped around Ling Zhao's waist like vines. Brother! Why are you here? I'm here to see you. Ning where are the others? Ling Xiao smiled and reached out to hold Ning Er's delicate body. He turned and nodded at Xiao Beifa and the others who had already bowed. The sisters are all in seclusion to cultivate. Ning pouted and looked a little aggrieved. Before Ling Xiao could ask, she suddenly burst into tears. Woo 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 woo. Brother, Sister Rouge bullied me. How did she bully you? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly as he looked at the little girl who was crying her heart out in his arms with some surprise. Logically speaking, with Phoenix Rouge's temperament, she would not make things difficult for a little girl for no reason. What happened? Sister Rouge said that within 3 months, everyone has to enter the Divine King realm, otherwise, she will have to eat the sky poison. Boo-hoo. Brother, I don't want to eat the sky poison. My sisters are all in the Divine Overlord realm, and I am the only Divine General. It's easy for them to break through to the Divine King realm, but what about me? Boo-hoo. I see. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. His face was full of affection. It was rare for this little girl to feel pressured. In the past, Ling Xiao thought that these people who were destined to enter the Divine King realm could always break through and become the strongest even if they did not deliberately cultivate. However, this process was inevitably slow. Even, like what he said before, entering the Divine King realm in 3 months was just a goal and not a mission. But now, with Phoenix Rouge's supervision, These women who were destined to enter the divine king realm were all working harder than before. At the end of the day, whether it was Ling Tian, Ning or the others, they all had to be strong enough to not let Ling Xiao spare their lives. My song is not bad, but this habit of feeding people poison so easily, should I change it? Chapter 802. Alright. Ning I believe you can do it. Aren't there still 2 more months? Look at what I've brought you. Ling Xiao smiled gently and took out a red armor from his interspatial ring. He had obtained this armor from the heavenly crocodile's ancestral land. It was a divine spiritual treasure. Although the clothes that the Phoenix Rouge had given to the ladies suited Ling Xiao's taste, it was useless to look good on the path of cultivation. Ning had already comprehended the rules of strength and awakened the Eastern royal sacred body. With this divine spiritual armor, once she became a divine king, even an emperor god would not be able to hurt her. Compared to Han Qingqiu, Lin Meng, and the others, Ning was more talented. Moreover, with the supply of elixirs from the entire elixir hall, Ling Xiao believed that she would catch up to the ladies in no time. Of course, this did not mean that Lin Meng and the others were not talented. It was just that Ning was too talented. Wow! What a beautiful little armor! But brother, I still like the little dress that Sister Rouge gave me. Ning pouted and the sadness on her face dissipated. Brother, you believe that I can do it. Even if I don't believe in myself, you are willing to believe in me. Humph, I don't want to eat the sky poison. It's okay. You can wear the little dress normally. When you leave the territory, you must wear this armor. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and rubbed Ning hair. Alright, I won't disturb you anymore. Cultivate well. Brother, I will definitely break through to the divine king realm. Ning clenched her fists and jumped down from Ling Xiao's arms. She looked determined. Ling Xiao, on the other hand, gave her an encouraging look and headed towards the sky hall. When he appeared in front of the heavenly hall, his face turned cold. Come out? With a thought, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back. The soul-sucking ghost pearl flew out of his sea of soul and floated above his head. At this moment, the blood bead overflowed with soul light and revealed a strange phenomenon. There seemed to be countless faces appearing alternately within it, revealing endless fear. As soon as Ling Xiao finished speaking, Gui Wupu's voice immediately came from the pearl. Greetings, my lord. To be honest, Gui Wupu was still panicking. Although Ling Xiao did not mention his previous words and actions, he felt a chill run down his spine when he saw Ling Xiao. He could not help but feel a chill run down his spine. Wu Po, if a person dies and all his vitality is gone, leaving only a wisp of soul consciousness. Tell me, how do you make him immortal? Ling Xiao's voice had an inexplicable sense of vicissitudes, while Gui Wupa's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. My lord, our ghost clan cultivates the Tao of the divine soul. If our divine soul is intact, we can take over another's body. We can even use secret immortal arts to reconstruct our bodies. However, we only have a wisp of divine soul left. This wisp of divine soul will eventually dissipate with time. Will it eventually dissipate? Ling Xiao shook his head. I don't believe you. Gui Wupu's expression froze, but he did not dare to say anything. My lord, are you doubting my professionalism? This divine soul was originally formed by remnant thoughts. Usually, when a powerhouse died, a wisp of divine soul would not be destroyed. However, this wisp of divine soul was not the origin of the divine soul. It could not be cultivated, and was very different from a remnant soul. A remnant soul, as the name suggests, was when the divine soul was broken and a wisp of it luckily escaped. On the other hand, divine soul was formed by the remnant thoughts and thoughts of the divine soul. In other words, a remnant soul could still be nourished and repaired. Although the process was difficult, there was still a glimmer of hope. As for the remnant thoughts, my lord, if it weren't for my fear of death, I would have mocked you. What do you think, my lord? Gui Wupu's heart was filled with disdain, but his tone became more humble. Ling Xiao, this be *starred, was so scheming that no one could guess his intentions. Since he was looking forward to returning to the upper realm and was waiting for an opportunity, he could not show any signs of disobedience. When I read the Book of Yama, I can swallow other people's souls to cultivate. Do you think this divine soul can cultivate this book and become immortal? Ling Xiao seemed to be asking Gui Wupu, but in the end, he was just asking himself. Xiong Huan's loyalty could be witnessed by the sun and moon. Especially that day in the ancestral land of the heavenly crocodile, the former demon general showed reverence, which made Ling Xiao feel moved. Moreover, with his strength, once he walked out of this realm and was not suppressed by the heavenly axiom, his combat power would definitely be stronger. Therefore, how could Ling Xiao bear to give up such a loyal and capable subordinate so easily? Gui Wupu was right, divine soul would eventually dissipate. Especially now that Xiong Huan had waited for the return of the sky demon. Presumably, the remnant thoughts in his heart would weaken because of this, and it would be difficult for him to hold on for 3 years. Ling Zhao's current spirit state had stepped into grade 9, which was the strongest under the shackles of this realm. Therefore, the thousands of remnant souls in the soul-sucking ghost pearl were of little use to him now. Why not give it to Xiong Huan? Master, although you are very talented, you are still a human and not a ghost. I can tell you clearly that even if your divine soul cultivates the Book of Yama, it can't swallow souls to cultivate. Gui Wupu sighed softly, as if he was a little disappointed. Yes, divine soul can't swallow souls, but you can. Ling Zhao's lips suddenly curled into a smile, and Gui Wupu's expression froze almost instantly. I can? Of course I can. I can do it very well. But what does it have to do with me? Does Master want me to take over someone's body and return to my physical body? Master, Wupu will do my best to assist you. There's no need for that. What I mean is that the soul-devouring ghost pearl can devour souls. If I place this pearl in the body where the soul consciousness is, it can continuously devour souls. You can erase the distracting thoughts in these souls and turn them into the purest soul energy. Then, you can nourish the soul consciousness. Won't this prevent the soul consciousness from being destroyed? Hearing this, Gui Wupu was stunned. What he said made sense. This feeling was like a leaky cup. Sooner or later, all the tea in it would leak out. But, as long as water was continuously poured into this leaky cup, wouldn't this cup always be full? Suddenly, Gui Wupu felt a chill in his heart. In front of him, there seemed to be a mountain of corpses, a sea of blood and a strong smell of blood. Even with Gui Wupu's temperament, he felt an inexplicable fear. For a divine soul to kill millions of living beings. This young man's temperament was terrifying. Most importantly, this kind of killing could never stop. Otherwise, that strand of soul consciousness would eventually dissipate. Xiong Huan. Ling Xiao smiled gently. His black robe fluttered and he looked otherworldly. At this moment, there was no trace of demonic intent coming from his body. But just standing there, he looked like a demon from the 9th heaven. He was domineering, and he was an enemy of the world. Who said that demons were heartless? I think this Ling Xiao is very affectionate. Master, you are righteous. But it seems like I am just a living being in his eyes? The kind that can be slaughtered at any time? Oh no! It felt like I was going to die. Chapter 803. My Lord. Xiong Huan descended from the sky and stood quietly in front of Ling Xiao. In the realm, Ling Xiao had thousands of strands of his soul consciousness. Wherever he willed, the heavens would be mighty. Refine this pearl and place it in your soul sea. Ling Xiao did not say much and directly handed the soul-sucking ghost pearl to Xiong Huan. You can also cultivate this technique. Xiong Huan felt a soul light overflowing in his soul sea. It turned into thousands of runes. It was the Ghost Clan's inheritance, the Dark Een Yama Sutra. Although it was difficult for Xiong Huan to devour souls in his current condition, the soul-sucking ghost pearl could do it. As long as the soul entered the pearl, as the owner of the pearl, he could use the soul power in it to cultivate. Even if this kind of cultivation could not restore Xiong Huan's soul vitality, at least, he would not die completely because of his obsession. Walking dead was a tragic word, but to Xiong Huan, it was a kind of fortune. Finally, he could follow the sky demon again and conquer the 9 heavens. As for Gui Wupu, Ling Xiao did not destroy his soul consciousness because he wanted to use his identity to plot against the Ghost Clan. Ling Xiao was good at pretending to be someone else, but he could not pretend to be a Ghost Clan member. After all, he was full of vigor and vitality, and his profound qi was visible to the naked eye. How could he disguise himself as Gui Wupu? Of course, as long as Xiong Huan refined the Ghost Pearl with his demonic intent, Gui Wupu could only submit. He was just an artifact soul. Other than moving his mouth, what else could he do? My lord, Xiong Huan was obviously hesitant. He could feel the power of the Ghost Pearl. Furthermore, the terrifying soul power surging within it was enough to make one drool. In other words, to those who cultivated the Dark King's Sutra, this Ghost Pearl was a great fortune. But my lord is giving it to me just like that? Suddenly, Xiong Huan's eyes seemed to tremble. It had been a few hundred years. Except for the moment when he saw Ling Xiao, there were no ripples in his heart. The reverence was real, but the coldness was fake. 1,000 years ago, when I saw you kill an immortal, I also knelt on the ground and cried emotionally. But you told me that the devil has no tears. Thus, I cultivated my lofty and unyielding character, discarding my lust and wholeheartedly attacking the heavens. But today, for some inexplicable reason, his demonic heart had shattered. From now on, I will no longer fight for the demons, but only for you. Thank you, my lord. Xiong Yuan knelt on one knee and did not get up for a long time. When he raised his head again, that peerless black figure was nowhere to be seen. Southern border, 100,000 great mountains. Between the rising and falling mountain ranges, there were spiritual trees that formed forests, and immortal auras were everywhere. If it weren't for the fact that this place was adjacent to the sea and was infested with demons, it would be a great place for cultivation. At this moment, Ling Xiao was standing in front of a barren mountain, gazing into the distance. Everything in the region was stable, while everyone was in closed-door cultivation, and it seemed to be thriving. So, there was no need for him to worry about it. To Ling Xiao, the Phoenix Rouge was not just an interesting soul of the same origin. Her poisonous body was a form of deterrence. Her scheming methods were top-notch in this strange world. What's more, this woman of destiny had always thought of herself as a villain. Therefore, she could not cause trouble, but she could urge everyone to work hard and move forward. Wherever a villain went, tens of thousands of servants would follow. But in the end, why was she still trampled under the feet of destiny and became a stepping stone on the path to immortality? Arrogant and conceited? In the end, it was because she was not strong enough. I use destiny as my servant, the strong as my slave, and righteousness to rule the world. What can the heavenly Tao do to me? Xiao Piao. With a thought from Ling Xiao, Xiao Piao's figure immediately stepped out of the realm and appeared in the sky. Kakik. At this moment, he was wearing a black robe decorated with red clouds. His face was covered by a ghost mask, and he let out a strange laugh. If not for his providence and his fat face that could not be covered by the ghost mask, Ling Xiao would have thought that another great demon had descended in southern border. Smack. However, the moment Xiao Popper's figure landed, the ghost mask on his face was completely shattered by Ling Xiao's palm. Kakik, where is your hammer? F***ck. I, Ling Xiao, the light of the righteous path, am righteous and righteous. Why is there a demon beside me? With Xiao Piao's appearance, he did not need to do anything to be recognized in the crowd. My lord, it's Miss Ru Go. She said that when our Devil Palace's strong cultivators appear in the future, we have to smile like this. She said that it is to create pressure for our enemies. Xiao Piao's face was filled with grievance as he lowered his head. Ling Xiao sighed softly. Let's go. My lord, where are we going now? We are going to meet the great demon of southern border. Ling Xiao's eyes were clear, and they faintly flickered with a wisp of ghastly coldness. Calculating the time, it should have been 2 days since the first divine envoy stepped into the sea. As such, it was time to create some clues for him to find Shi. Great demon? In this world, there is something even greater than you. Smack. In the barren mountains and ancient forests there was a green mist. The sea was thousands of miles away, but Ling Xiao was not in a hurry to step in. Instead, he took out a voice transmission talisman. This talisman was personally given to him by the great demon. He said that it was to make it easier for them to contact each other in the future. According to Ling Xiao's thoughts, although when Ruyu was selfish, she was not a crazy person. Therefore, when he said that he was willing to do his part to kill the divine envoy, he was just representing himself. However, from the beginning to the end, Ling Xiao wanted the 6 demons to come out together. Only then could it be said that he was going all out. That day, Ziyan had said that killing Duguyunjin was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Even with her cultivation, she was still so apprehensive. One could imagine how terrifying the first divine envoy's methods were. Therefore, this battle would definitely be difficult and dangerous. Fortunately, whether it was Ziyan or the 6 demons, they were just a few chess pieces in Ling Xiao's chess game. Since it was a trap, it naturally had to be foolproof. Duguyunjin must not leave southern border. Buzz! Killing intent flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes. The golden talisman in his hand immediately shone with spiritual radiance. Lord Ling Xiao. The great demon's voice was slightly low. It was obvious that he had guessed Ling Xiao's intention of using this talisman. Senior 1. The extreme ice Dao law has appeared in the sea recently. However, what surprised Wenruyu was that Ling Xiao did not mention killing the divine envoy. What? The extreme ice Dao law? That's right. Such a Dao law is rare. Moreover, it has appeared now. Isn't the timing too coincidental? Duguyunjin has already rushed to the sea. There was a long silence on the other side of the voice transmission talisman. In the end, when Ryu only asked, "Young master, what do you plan to do?" "Head to the sea. First, find this person with the extreme ice Dao law, investigate, and then make a plan." Ling Xiao's lips curled into a smile. After all, he had lived 2 lives and understood the human heart very well. If he really asked Wenruyu to accompany him to kill the divine envoy, this great demon might not do his best even if he agreed. However, it was fine. As long as you enter this trap, I will give you the motivation to sacrifice your life step by step. Young master, where are you now? I'll go find you. Chapter 804. I'm at the old site of the immortal mystic sect, near the sea. Ling Xiao smiled gently and put away the talisman. His eyes were full of killing intent. Now that the great demon was here, the second demon wouldn't be far behind. But before that, he had to prepare to take Qin Chu's life. With Wenruyu's deep love for Yi Qingchan, even if there was only a 1 in 10,000 chance of finding her, this great demon wouldn't let it go easily. This could be seen from the fact that he dared to meet the saint of the sacred sect. The human heart was complicated to describe, but it had its flaws. In the ancient village of Green Mountain, smoke rose in spirals. When Ruyu stood in the hut with her hands behind her back, she looked at the ancient painting of the snow mountain without a trace of emotion on her face. The sword demon had returned from the eastern border and found out about Yi Qingchan's whereabouts. Ling Xiao was right. He did arrange for Yi Qinchan to be in the sword sect and let her become the disciple of the sword sect master. Moreover, everyone in the eastern border knew that Ling Xiao gave a gift to Yi Qinchan on the day of his engagement. But about a year ago, Yi Qinchan suddenly went down the mountain to look for Ling Xiao and never returned. As for Ling Xiao, the people of the eastern border had different opinions about him. Some said that he was a foppish Ling people and cultivated the myriad demonic art. Some said that his identity was mysterious, and that even the sect master of Taixien and the Cloud Alliance had to bow down to him. In short, this person was very mysterious and disappeared without a trace a year ago. Of course, when Ruyu didn't believe all these rumors. After all, there were two sides to the story. For example, the Grand Elder of the Immortal Mystic sect, Feng Yuanyang, called him Brother Wen 3 months ago. Then, he turned around and wanted to kill Chu to prove his reputation. Whether Ling Xiao was the young master of the demonic sect or the saint of the sacred sect, to be honest, it didn't make much difference to Wenryu. I'm a demon. Why would I look down on demons? On the contrary, compared to his identity as the saint of the sacred sect, Ling Xiao's title as the young master of diabolism made Wenryu feel more at ease. That day at the foot of Mount Xuanxi, Wenryu had already confirmed the thoughts in his heart in the illusion. As long as Ling Xiao really did know and love Miss Yi, he would do everything in his power to help him realize his dream. He was just a bootlicker. What bad intentions could he have? Wasn't being lowly to the bone a basic form of cultivation? Wind and waves rose and fell in the vast sea. Dugu Yunjin, Shui Rou, and Ling Xiao stood in the depths of the sea, looking at the frozen corpse before them with a trace of surprise in their eyes. The person in front of him was a level 2 divine emperor. At that moment, his face was extremely calm. It was as though he had been killed by someone by accident. When did you find out? Dugu Yunjin looked at the Sea tribe members beside the corpses and said in an extremely cold tone, My lord, about an hour ago, we discovered that our clan master had gone missing. That's why we sent people to look for him. An hour? Seems like that ice demon hasn't gone far. Shui Rou, you go to the east. The rest of you go to the west. Lord Ling Xiao, I have a divine talisman here that can block an attack from a level 8 divine emperor. You go to the north. If you find anything, send me a message immediately. Dugu Yunjin hesitated for a moment and looked at the Sea tribe's divine emperors. You follow this young master? Yes. Ling Xiao didn't refuse. Although he looked a little nervous, he still took the 2 divine talismans from Dugu Yunjin. Swoosh swoosh. Whooshing sounds could be heard and the figures of the few emperor gods instantly disappeared from their original positions. Ling Xiao, on the other hand, didn't hesitate and headed north at top speed. At the same time, Shixi's figure appeared in the depths of the sea a few hundred miles away. There was a mystical sea tribe gathered here. It was called the Ancient Coral Tribe. This tribe was an inconspicuous tribe in the sea region. Their battle strength was weak, but they had an extremely unique talent, which was cold resistance. The reason why this tribe could survive until now was because they lived in the coldest and most desolate region of the sea region. No one was willing to come here. Naturally, this was the reason why Ling Xiao had specially chosen them. Flaws had to be logical in order for people to believe them. Of course, with Dugu Yunjin's mentality, even if he didn't believe it completely, he wouldn't let go of any clues. At that time, no matter if he had doubts or not, he had no choice but to follow the path Ling Xiao had chosen for him. My lord. In the end, Dugu Yunjin and the others didn't find any traces of Ice Demon. Their faces were gloomy and disappointed. I don't believe that a small evil demon can hide under my nose for long. Eugene. Dugu Yunjin looked at Ling Xiao and suddenly took out a divine talisman and said in a deep voice, Lord Dugu, where is the Holy Sun? The Holy Sun is searching for Southern Border's demon. He's under the Immortal Mystic sect. You don't have to follow the Holy Sun for now. Come to the sea region and help me find Ice Demon. Yes, my lord. The corner of Stacked Shadow's mouth curled up into a sinister smile as he turned into an afterimage and disappeared. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. At the edge of the sea region, Ling Zhao's main body stood side by side with the great demon and looked at the sea region ahead. Behind them, Xiao Po's expression was indifferent, and his Dao aura was abundant. Xiong Huan was refining the soul-sucking ghost pearl in the realm and couldn't split up. However, with this heavenly mandate who had comprehended the time Dao, Ling Xiao had enough time to hide in the realm even if he encountered danger. As for whether Xiaopo would die or not, who cares? Lord Ling Xiao, do you know where Ice Demon is? I've been in the mystic realm for the past few days and didn't know where Ice Demon is. However, young Master Qin has been in the sea region for more than a month. Why don't you ask him and see if he knows anything? Ling Xiao shook his head with a calm expression. Sure, that's good. When Ruyu nodded slightly and took out a spiritual talisman. Sure, Grandmaster? Where are you? I'm at the edge of the Dragon Transformation Sea. Strange, the flood dragons in the Dragon Transformation Sea have all disappeared. Young Master Qin, have you heard about Ice Demon? Ling Xiao suddenly opened his mouth, and Qin Chu fell into a momentary daze. Lord Ling Xiao, is that you? Is it really you? Ice Demon? I did hear that an ice demon appeared in the sea region and killed innocent people, but I've never seen him. Young Master, are you in the sea region too? Where are you? I'll go find you now. Qin Chu's voice was obviously excited. In the past month, he had killed more than 100 sea race demons and dug out their demon cores to prove his name to young Master one day. Hearing Ling Zhao's voice, Qin Chu felt that it was a bit surreal. Young Master, we've been apart for more than a month. This, Ling Xiao turned to look at Wen Ruyu, only to see the latter smile bitterly and suddenly say, Sure, go to Wang Yu. Lord Ling Xiao and I will go there now. Okay. Grandmaster. Young Master, let's go. My disciple is proficient in some secret divination technique. With his help, we might be able to get twice the result with half the effort. When Ruyu explained, Ling Xiao didn't say anything else and walked toward the sea region. Wang Yu? Young Master Qin, I'm afraid you can't come to this island. Chapter 805. To the north of the sea, glaciers floated and there were no signs of human habitation. Even ordinary members of the Oceanic clan would not easily set foot in this place. The reason was because it was too cold. All living things faced the sun. Occasionally, there would be creatures who preferred places that were cold and dark. However, it was only because they were forced by fate and had become accustomed to it over the years. At this moment, in the frigid water domain, Dugu Yunjin stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He frowned as he looked at the ice sticks in front of him. The ancient Coral clan was a small clan in the Endless Sea. He had never even heard of them before. However, earlier today, Eugene had sent him a message saying that the ancient Coral clan had been massacred. It was suspected that the ice demon was the culprit. To be honest, Dugu Yunjin was more and more confused. Demons would either kill out of anger or pleasure. However, in the end, it was just a spur of the moment. However, the ice demon had killed from the south of the sea to the north. His whereabouts were erratic, and he did not stop for even a moment. No matter how he looked at it, it seemed like a conspiracy. However, since it was a conspiracy, there must be something behind it. The ice demon deliberately exposed the frigid ice Dao law to attract his attention. What exactly was he planning? My lord! Look, this demon still has vitality. Just as Dugu Yunjin was muttering to himself, Shui Ro, who was beside him, suddenly exclaimed and attracted his attention. Buzz! Dugu Yunjin took a step forward and appeared in front of the ice sculpture. A spirit wheel appeared on his palm, releasing thousands of rays of divine light and shattering the ice on the demon corpse. Puchi! At the same time, the frozen member of the ancient coral clan suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. He curled up on the ground and trembled. At this moment, his vitality and bloodline were exhausted. He only had a mouthful of demonic aura to retain some of his divine consciousness. Duguyunjin bent down and stuffed a spirit pill into the ancient coral clan member's mouth. Immediately, the latter's body overflowed with spiritual light. His originally pale and withered face gradually regained some color. Who killed the ancient coral clan? Forget it. Duguyunjin hesitated for a moment. In the end, he sighed softly. Soul light suddenly flickered in his eyes. He searched the ancient coral clan member's soul and completely destroyed his vitality. This, Ling Xiao and Shui Ro looked at each other with fear in their eyes. The ancient coral clan member. Their lord was anxious. Plop. It was only when Duguyunjin threw the ancient coral clansman's corpse on the ground that his eyes flashed with killing intent. "My lord, how have you found any clues about the ice demon?" "Go!" Duguyunjin didn't say a word, and he turned around and flashed towards the distant sea. At this moment, as he looked at the figure that gradually vanished without a trace, the corners of Ling Zhao's mouth instantly curled up into a wisp of an obscure smile, and his face was concealed by immortal radiance as he chased after the figure. Naturally, he had ordered Shi-Si to keep this ancient coral race clansman alive. What he saw was nothing more than Ling Zhao's arrangement. It was nothing more than Shi-Si using a spiritual talisman to call him master and agree to meet at the center of the Endless Sea, a place called Green Pool Island. This deserted island was the only way to reach the forgotten islet from the Dragon Transformation Sea. Qin Chu had Ling Zhao's soul consciousness on him, so Shi-Si could easily stop him. At that time, Duguyunjin would be able to witness a good show that Ling Xiao had specially arranged for him. Whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, on Green Pool Island, Shi-Si stood with his hands behind his back, his face covered by a demonic light. In front of him, Qin Chu frowned slightly, his eyes seeming to be vigilant, but there was no panic. Along the way, he vaguely felt that there was an expert following behind him, although he didn't know which master was hiding in the dark. However, it was obvious that the reason why Qin Chu was able to roam the sea and kill so many Sea clan prodigies in this month without being hunted down by the strong clans was most likely because the person behind him had deterred those with evil intentions. "Who are you?" "Young Master Qin Chu." Shi-Si bowed, causing Qin Chu's face to be even more puzzled. "My master asked me to bring you a message." "Your master?" Qin Chu's eyes narrowed slightly, and a faint uneasiness rose in his heart. Even in the void above his head, the five-demon sword Nanchern also appeared, surrounded by biting cold sword intent, looking into the distance with a guarded expression. Just now, his sword heart trembled slightly, but before he could feel it clearly, that extreme sense of danger instantly disappeared without a trace. It was as if a supreme expert had descended here and deliberately concealed his aura. However, in the sea area, other than the great demon Wenryu and the late sect master of the immortal mystic sect, Helian Shan, the only person who could make him, a 7th-grade peak sword emperor, feel fear was probably the Sea Emperor. Oh, and the first divine envoy of the sacred sect who had never appeared. 5th Master? Qin Chu's face darkened, especially when he saw the vigilance in Jian Nanchen's eyes, which made the uneasiness in his heart grow even stronger. Did Master feel it too? That aura that flashed and disappeared. "Let's go." Jian Nanchen didn't say much. He put one hand on Qin Chu's shoulder and was about to leave this place. "Young Master Qin Chu, my Purple Emperor asked me to come and tell you something." Shi-Si raised his foot and blocked the two figures. A hint of mockery gradually rose in his long and narrow demon eyes. "Sea Emperor?" Hearing that, Jian Nanchen's footsteps paused slightly. He looked at Qin Chu with some surprise, as if asking when did he have anything to do with the Sea Emperor? "Sea Emperor?" However, the confusion on Qin Chu's face instantly made Jian Nanshan feel a chill in his heart. Not good. Could it be that Chuer had been schemed against? If you don't move aside, then stay here. Jian Nanshan clasped his hands together, and his voice was cold. Between heaven and earth, the sound of a sword suddenly resounded, and the sea within 10,000 miles instantly surged with waves. In the area dozens of feet around Jian Nanshan, layers of space collapsed and then reassembled without stopping. With Jian Nanshan's cultivation, he didn't need a second sword strike to kill Shi Si. However, since he mentioned the two words Sea Emperor, whether it was true or not, Jian Nanshan couldn't be presumptuous at all. With that person's means and temperament, once he rashly attacked and killed her people, there would probably be no place for the 6 demons to rest in this southern border. Young Master Qin Chu, the Sea Emperor ordered me to use the Ice Dao Law to kill people and attract the first divine envoy's attention. Now, I will head to the northern border and completely lure him out of the sea. The Sea Emperor asked me to inform young Master, please tell the great demon that Miss Yi Qinchan is safe and sound. You can rest assured. As soon as he finished speaking, Shi Si bowed. Jian Nanshan's raised finger suddenly stopped in midair. Yi Qinchan? Miss Yi. Regarding this name, he originally didn't know. However, when he was reborn this time, he learned of Miss Ye's name from Wenru. Previously, when he went to the eastern border, he confirmed that Yi Qinchan had reincarnated. Thus, at this moment, he had inexplicably guessed some things. Could it be that his big brother had already contacted the Sea Emperor and deliberately set up this trap to protect Miss Yi? It is indeed a scheme. Ziyan? Why would she protect Yi Qinchan? Wait. Thousands of miles away, Dugu Yunjin's expression froze. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. Back then, Ziyan had said that he was a traitor. In his entire life, he had only betrayed one person, Yi Qinchan. So, all of this was actually ordered by Yi Qinchan. It made sense, everything made sense. Chapter 806. Sea Empress Ziyan had a mysterious background. Even the sacred sect didn't know her identity. They only knew that she had appeared out of nowhere 300 years ago and used her terrifying strength to suppress all races in the sea region and become the Empress. Originally, the sacred sect had planned to use this woman to unify the sea region and then control her alone to achieve the true unification of the Xingzhou. But now, it seemed that this woman's scheme wasn't as simple as the sea region. At this moment, a wisp of surprise flickered in Ling Zhao's eyes as he gazed at Dugu Yunjin, whose face was filled with shock and whose aura even fluctuated slightly. Something wasn't right. Originally, he had only planned to use Yi Qinchan, who wasn't in the sea region, to lure the great demon into the trap and create the illusion that the great demon and the Sea Empress had joined forces to plot against the sacred sect. And since Yi Qinchan was the sacred sect's reverse scale, using her as a trap would definitely attract Dugu Yunjin's interest and killing intent. But the first divine emissary's reaction had greatly exceeded Ling Zhao's expectations. There was definitely something he didn't know about. But, no matter what, the trap was set. Dugu Yunjin's killing intent had reached a level that was almost impossible to suppress. And he only needed a thought to kill Shishir on the spot. As long as this person died, the plan would be flawless. No one would admit that the dead couldn't testify. Even if Dugu Yunjin killed his way to the Sea Empress Palace and confronted Ziyan, would the Sea Empress explanation be useful? The only way to prove her innocence was to have Dugu Yunjin search her spirit. And given Ziyan's temper, this battle was simply unavoidable. In fact, even if she guessed that everything was done by Ling Xiao, so what? Not to mention that this woman had great enmity towards the sacred sect, Dugu Yunjin definitely wouldn't believe her words. Even if Dugu Yunjin believed her, as long as Ling Xiao appeared as a chosen and showed his attitude of joining forces with the Sea Empress, what choice could she make? At that time, the great demon and the 4 demons would descend. Ziyen would definitely be tempted and use this opportunity to completely eliminate Duguyunjin. Otherwise, even if Dugu Yunming killed the 5 devils, with the Holy Church's style of doing things, they would rather kill the wrong person than let the wrong person go. How could she, Ziyen, remain unscathed? Moreover, according to Ling Zhao's conjecture, after killing Duguyunjin, this woman would definitely make her move again. She would kill Wenryu and himself, creating a false impression that Duguyunjin had died in the hands of the devils and holy princes. Who to kill first was a very simple choice for Ziyen. No matter how strong the 5 demons were, they were only at the 8th rank Divine Emperor realm. However, Duguyunjin was a genuine 9th rank Divine Emperor. Of course, even if Ziyen really chose to stay out of trouble and chose to abandon the sea region and live on with the crime of being hunted down by the sacred cult's divine master, Ling Xiao still had other methods to turn the situation around. Calculating the time, Floey should have reached the sea region. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, Ling Xiao didn't believe that a woman who schemed against Yizhan and Eni and fought for 300 years to get the position of Sea King would give up all rights so easily. Villains only cared about profit. All decisions were made after weighing the pros and cons. Unfortunately, it was also because of this that Ziyen had completely fallen into Ling Zhao's trap. Who is it? Above the deserted island, Jian Nanshan's eyes narrowed slightly. His sword intense soared into the sky and turned into a dazzling galaxy, shattering the void. There seemed to be hundreds of millions of Dao patterns flickering in it. Every trace of it contained an extremely terrifying sword Dao charm. At this moment, his face was inexplicably pale. To be able to conceal his whereabouts under his nose, the person's cultivation must have stepped into the 8th rank or even the 9th rank. Or was he being targeted? Chu-er, go quickly. Go find your master. Thinking of this, Jian Nanshan didn't dare to hesitate at all. He grabbed Qin Chu's shoulder and pushed him fiercely into the distance. At the same time, Shi Si's figure disappeared from the spot and fled frantically into the depths of the sea region. Want to leave? Duguyunjin snorted coldly. He stretched out his big hand and pierced through the void. At the center of his palm, there seemed to be the evolution of rules. A golden sun floated, suppressing the 9 heavens and intimidating one's mind. At this moment, the rules of heaven and earth quietly stagnated. Even Ling Zhao's eyes revealed a trace of surprise at such a terrifying power. A 9th rank Divine Emperor, the peak of the Xingzhou continent. His combat strength was indeed terrifying. 9th rank Divine Emperor. Feeling the terrifying pressure rippling in the space, Jian Nanshan's face instantly turned ashen. Immediately, he held the ancient sword in his hand horizontally and slashed at one of the golden palm prints. Buzz! The sword chi was like a rainbow, pouring into the world like the Milky Way from outer space. In an instant, tens of thousands of rays of light covered the sky. The runes of the great Tao were like the waves of the sea. The originally confined heaven and earth suddenly split open a deep ravine. There seemed to be thunder roaring in one's ears, causing one's scalp to go numb. Boom! In the end, the sword intent slashed down. Along with the primordial mist, it pierced through the blue sky and shattered the golden radiance, landing on the golden sun. Endless sword chi instantly exploded. Everywhere it passed, the void was neatly shattered. Qin Chu was the first to bear the brunt. He directly spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he did not dare to look back and instantly disappeared into the sky. At this moment, the clothes on his back had long been cut into pieces by the sword's intense remnant power, revealing a flickering inner armor. Even so, his aura was still extremely weak. It was obvious that he had suffered serious injuries. On the other side, Shi Si let out a miserable cry. The bronze cauldron in front of him instantly shattered. At the critical moment, he actually abandoned his physical body and fled. "You're courting death." Duguyunjin's eyes narrowed slightly. His expression seemed to be sullen. Obviously, he did not expect the 5 demon sword Nanshan's attainments in the sword Tao to be so terrifying. One sword strike broke his spiritual palm and messed up his mind. Elder Shui, go and capture that demon, Lord Ling Xiao. Don't worry, sir. Ling Xiao nodded calmly. His face was covered by immortal clouds as he chased after Qin Chu. The reason why he followed Duguyunjin was to wait for an opportunity to kill Qin Chu and complete the harvest of this leak. Now, how could he let him go so easily? Once Qin Chu died, the 5 demons' hopes would be completely destroyed. It was time for them to completely fall into madness. However, it was a pity for the peerless sword cultivator, Sword Demon. If he didn't die, he would definitely be able to help kill Duguyunjin. Of course, if Sword Demon wasn't here today, Qin Chu might not be able to escape so easily. Divine Envoy of the Sacred Sect. In the air, Sword Demon's palm trembled slightly, and blood seemed to drip from the corner of his mouth. Although he saw a white-robed figure chasing after Chuer, he didn't dare to move at all. His mission now was to stall Duguyunjin. Only then would Qin Chu have a chance of survival. Although Ling Xiao had covered his face, Sword Demon could still see that it was a youth. In the entire Xingzhou, who was Chu Er's match among her peers. But why did that white-robed youth's figure look so familiar? A golden talisman suddenly lit up in Sword Demon's hand. Big brother! The divine envoy has arrived. Quickly come and save Chu Er. You're about to die, and you still have the mood to care about others? Duguyunjin snorted coldly. He took a step forward and instantly appeared above Sword Demon's head. Boom! Endless golden light fell from the sky. The vast divine power transformed into the universe and completely enveloped Sword Demon's figure. Chapter 807. So what if you're the divine messenger of the Saint Sect? The Sword Demon smiled faintly. His white robe fluttered in the wind, and he looked magnificent. There were 3,000 sword intents on the ancient sword in his hand, which could destroy the universe. However, compared to ordinary sword principle experts, the Sword Demon seemed to be surrounded by a demonic glow. He was like a demonic sun that rose along with his aura. He stood in the void like an ancient sword that had been unsheathed, exuding an unparalleled sharpness. The aura of the Sword Demon was on full display. How dare a mere demon compete with the sun and the moon? Duguyunjin looked calm. Although the Sword Demon's means were beyond his expectations. But that was all. He could kill a 7th-grade Divine Emperor in ordinary times. Even if he wanted to kill the Sword Demon now, it wouldn't be too difficult. However, now that the sea area was shrouded in fog, he only wanted to capture the demon in front of him and find out who was involved in this conspiracy. The rebirth of the sun suppressed all eternity. The means of a 9th-grade Divine Emperor were taboo. Just a wisp of power was enough to shatter the mind of an ordinary Divine Emperor. However, the Sword Demon didn't panic at all. Instead, there was a hint of excitement on his face. After living for more than 200 years, he could finally fight with his life on the line. A swordsman would press forward with indomitable will. The sword intent on his body was getting colder and colder. A stunning sword radiance fell into the deep sea like an immortal glow, consigned to eternal damnation. Boom! The two figures collided in the void. The golden sun flickered, and the sword principle collided violently. At the same time, Ling Xiao took a step forward. Like a white steed, he descended from the void and blocked Qin Chu's path. There was a vast spiritual glow on Qin Chu's body. He directly struck at Ling Xiao's head. Boom! Spiritual power surged like a huge bell, intimidating all directions. 3 supreme-grade Taoist artifacts appeared in the void at the same time. They were dazzling and had a terrifying aura that could crush heaven and earth. Ling Xiao's lips curled into a smile. He struck out a palm that carried thousands of Taoist principles and swept it down. Clang! Clang! The void instantly shattered, and there was an ear-piercing sound. A myriad of mysterious phenomena appeared in Ling Zhao's palm. Immortal lights scattered, boundless and endless. There were divine trees that pierced through the heavens, crushing heaven and earth. There were lightning suns that rose, illuminating the heavens. There were raging flames that surged, incinerating everything. There were towering mountains that covered the universe. Boom! In an instant, the 3 Tao artifacts shattered, and Qin Chu's figure did not even have the time to approach Ling Xiao before he was suppressed by the vast heavenly might and fell to the bottom of the sea. At this moment, the corners of Ling Xiao's mouth suddenly curled up into a playful smile, and there seemed to be a myriad of soul lights in his eyes that enveloped Qin Chu. Buzz! Qin Chu's eyes flashed with confusion as the stars in front of him changed. At this moment, he could feel that there was a mysterious and profound power of the world engulfing and swallowing him, and he was falling into an unknown space. Young Master Qin, long time no see. Before he landed on the ground, he heard a familiar voice. Then, a white-robed figure descended from the sky and stood quietly in front of him. His aura was otherworldly and otherworldly. Even the clean smile at the corner of his mouth was as dazzling as the Milky Way in the 9th heaven. Young Master Ling Xiao? Qin Chu's eyes widened, and after a while, his face flushed with excitement. Were you the one who saved me? Grandmaster is here? No. Ling Xiao's expression was gentle as he shook his head. He could see that in this 1 month, Qin Chu's cultivation level had reached the 5th stage of the divine overlord realm. Even the providence that had been squeezed dry by Ling Xiao had recovered to 700. It was obvious that this 1 month of killing was a great opportunity for this son of destiny. However, a divine overlord, no matter how talented he was no match for Ling Xiao. In fact, to put it bluntly, Qin Chu was like an ant in Ling Xiao's eyes. I am here to send you on your last journey. What? Ling Xiao? Young master? What did you say? Qin Chu staggered, his face full of fear. Never in his wildest dreams did he think that the man he saw as a benchmark on the path to immortality would kill him today. If I don't kill you, how can I lure your masters into my trap? How can I make them fight Dugu Yunjin to the death? Ling Xiao smiled faintly. His tone was extremely calm. He put Qin Chu into his realm to prevent him from communicating with the demon. 700 points of fate, if he squeezed it a little, it would be completely drained. Moreover, Qin Chu had always seen him as the light of righteousness, a kindred spirit. Now that he saw the real side of him, he must be very surprised. Otherwise, why would his expression be so agitated, as if he was about to cry? Beat. The Son of Destiny's Tao heart has been shattered. Congratulations, host, you have gained 500 points of luck and 5,000 points of villain. I don't believe it. You must have your reasons, right? Young master, you can kill me, but don't play with my feelings. Qin Chu clenched his fist. His voice was miserable, and even his face was strangely pale. I will send your masters down to accompany you as soon as possible. Ling Xiao shook his head. People were always used to blindly believing what they saw. But they didn't know that on the path to immortality, everyone was for themselves. Even the demon who took him in as a disciple and taught him everything, didn't he also have a selfish motive? Qin Chu's model was supposed to be smooth sailing and stunning the world. But as soon as he left the mountain, he fell into Ling Xiao's control. No, you're not Lord Ling Xiao. You must be pretending to be him. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. Qin Chu roared furiously. Suddenly, he took the wine pot from his waist and drank all the immortal wine. In a short moment, his aura regained its majesty and suppressed the sky. He vaguely reached the level of a 9th stage divine lord. The Son of Destiny would only use his trump card when he was about to die to forcibly raise his cultivation level and turn around to slap his opponent in the face. It was normal. But today, Ling Xiao had already stepped out of the range of the younger generation. No matter how powerful Qin Chu was and how many spirit treasures he had, he was not worth mentioning. Dao patterns suddenly appeared around Qin Chu's body. His sword intent was like the sea and turned into a divine pillar out of thin air, trying to hold up the blue sky. Then, under Ling Xiao's calm gaze, he held the immortal sword in his hand and slashed at him fiercely. Too weak. Ling Xiao shook his head. He stretched out 2 fingers and turned them into thousands of rays of clear light, instantly cutting the tens of thousands of feet-long sword aura into nothingness. Seeing this, Qin Chu's eyes finally flashed with fear and shock. Suddenly, he seemed to believe that the person in front of him was indeed Ling Xiao. His immortal appearance was unparalleled, and his sword Dao was heaven-defying. How many young prodigies in the world could have such charm? Pfft! Beep, the Son of Destiny's Dao heart is broken. Congratulations to the host for plundering 200 luck points and 2,000 villain points. Beep, the Son of Destiny's luck has been cleared. Kill him now for an additional reward. No. I have to warn Master and the others. Qin Chu's eyes were filled with rage as a vast soul light suddenly flickered in his eyes, and then it transformed into 2 piercingly cold soul swords out of thin air. They pierced through the sky with an extremely strange speed and slashed towards Ling Xiao's soul sea. At the same time, a bright golden talisman appeared in his hand, and he was about to warn the demon. However, in the next moment, his face suddenly froze. Chapter 808. The soul sword turned into a shadow and whizzed over, piercing into Ling Xiao's eyes with the power to suppress heaven and earth. Qin Chu was confident in his divine soul technique. A 7th-stage divine king was peerless. Even in the entire Xingzhou, no one in the younger generation was a match for him. Moreover, the soul technique he cultivated was an ancient secret technique with terrifying killing power. Even an Emperor God expert's soul would be injured if caught off guard. As everyone knew, the Tao of the divine soul was unpredictable and had always been feared. Now, with 2 swords in his body, even if Ling Xiao's talent was close to that of a demon, he would probably die. At this moment, Qin Chu felt an inexplicable sadness in his heart. At this moment, he had vaguely guessed many things. It was likely that this saint of the holy sect had lured him into a trap from the beginning. His goal was to lure out the masters behind him. Although Qin Chu couldn't figure out why Ling Xiao wanted to kill the first divine envoy, in the end, he trusted the wrong person and almost caused the deaths of his masters. However, just as Qin Chu was sighing inwardly, a terrifying scene appeared. Not only did Ling Xiao not show a trace of pain on his face, but a faint smile appeared on his face. What the F***ck? Suddenly, Qin Chu's eyes flashed with a hint of confusion. His shattered Dao heart didn't even have a trace of it left. Originally, before walking out of the mountain village, he didn't think he was that awesome. However, later on, whether it was in the immortal mystic sect or facing the elites of the sea, Qin Chu realized that he was actually quite amazing. However, today, facing Ling Xiao, Qin Chu actually felt an extreme sense of depression and despair. The young man in front of him was like a mountain that he couldn't climb, and even more surpass. Young master, in the end, you have become a sea of stars that I can't reach in this lifetime. Why? Qin Chu sighed softly and looked down at the voice transmission talisman that had already lost its spiritual light. His expression inexplicably calmed down. He had thought that one day, he would have a life-and-death battle with Ling Xiao. However, that kind of battle would not be mixed with a trace of conspiracy. It would be upright and just to prove his name. But now, it seemed that all of this had become an extravagant hope. Ling Xiao didn't say much. Suddenly, A soul light blossomed in his eyes. It was as if two great stars were falling from the night sky. Within it, Taoist rhymes flowed and laws interweave. A domineering aura that could suppress the 9 heavens filled the air. Boom! The firmament collapsed, and the world became extremely bright. The expression on Qinling's face finally froze at the moment when the resplendent light was about to be extinguished. Beep! Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the child of destiny. Additional rewards: 200,000 villain points, Heavenly Tao Law, 2% Destiny casting value. Beep! Since the host's Destiny forging value has reached 32%, killing the Child of Destiny will grant the Child of Destiny Sacred Body. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Sacred Body of all things. 32%. Sacred Body of all things? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. Don't you guys feel that this system is a little weird? This means that 32% of him had activated a new system function? However, it was said that once the sacred body of all things was cultivated to the great completion stage, one could see through 10,000 spells with a single glance and turn them into one's own. Compared to the sword and saber bodies, the sacred body of all things was obviously more useful to Ling Xiao. Heavenly Tao Law perfected. Xian Tian ancient scripture at a point. Ling Xiao's mind moved, and a terrifying spirit aura immediately circulated around him. Divine light surged and the runes turned into a sea. Thousands of mystical things appeared above Ling Xiao's head, and there seemed to be 2 immortal figures sitting quietly in the sky. One of them was surrounded by purple qi and had Taoist rhymes. There were rivers and mountains in its purple eyes, and the sun, the moon, and the stars rose one after another. It was Ling Xiao's purple qi pure Tao body. As for the other one, it gradually solidified from its original blurry and illusory state. However, this Tao body looked ordinary and there was no avatar around it. However, as he sat in the void, he gave off a feeling that he would never be destroyed. Second stage Divine Emperor. Ling Xiao looked calm. He extended 2 fingers and cut off Qin Chu's head. Then, he disappeared on the spot. Meanwhile, above Green Pool Island, a golden light broke through the sun and turned into a huge seal that covered the sky. The divine seal had 4 directions and a divine dragon as the handle. The 4 spirits were the guardians, and it contained boundless power. Boom! Instantly, heaven and earth were overturned and the universe was shattered. Under the ancient seal, Jian Nanshan's eyes were clear. His white robe had already been dyed red, but there was no trace of disappointment on his face. Buzz! Suddenly, he pointed his sword at the sky, and the blood qi in his body suddenly surged. A vast sword intent swept in all directions, and the entire sea area was stirred up by strong winds. The ancient forests and barren mountains on the island collapsed for no reason at this moment. Then, under Duguyunjin's slightly surprised gaze, Jian Nanshan took a step forward. Like a sword soaring into the sky, he directly pierced towards the ancient dragon divine seal. His aura was still rising. Vaguely, he seemed to have turned into a blood-red divine sword that pierced through the sky, destroyed the epic, and slashed down from the primordial world. The blue sky was about to cry, and the waves were surging. 10,000 zhang tall waves rose and fell like a waterfall, and heaven and earth were overturned in an instant. However, in the end, the golden seal smashed down and cleared away the demonic clouds. Even the peerless sword was suppressed and fell. Boom! The entire Green Pool Island shattered and sank to the bottom of the sea. Poof! Jian Nanshan's figure only appeared on the surface of the sea when all the lights in the world were extinguished. At this moment, the bones in his body had already been shattered, but his eyes were flickering with excitement. He raised his head and looked at Duguyunjin. His expression was extremely calm, but there was also a trace of loneliness. I have fought countless enemies in my life, but I have never been defeated. It is not a disgrace to be defeated by you today. As soon as he finished speaking, the soul light in his eyes suddenly shone brightly and disappeared in an instant. Duguyunjin stood in the void with a slightly gloomy face. He had to admit that this sword demon's combat strength was heaven-defying. Even his 9th-grade emperor's aura could not make him bow down. From the beginning, Duguyunjin knew that such a person could not be captured, and could only be killed. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of air being torn apart sounded from the distant horizon. Ling Zhao's figure was flying over from the distant sky with Qin Chu's head in his hand. He first took a glance at the lifeless sword demon that was still standing proudly on the surface of the sea. Then, he turned his head to look at Duguyunjin. "Lord Divine Envoy, fortunately, I did not disappoint you." Amen. Duguyunjin nodded indifferently. He looked to the distant sky. There, Shui Ro was flying over with wounds all over her body. Her aura was very weak. She bowed to him. "Milord, that demon destroyed her own soul." "Got it." Duguyunjin sighed lightly. Although he had expected the situation to turn out this way, he did not expect it to be so miserable. It was obvious that these people would rather die than betray Yi Zichen. Suddenly, Duguyunjin's eyes flickered with the vicissitudes of life. Even the aura he was emitting was somewhat exhausted. However, there was no way out for him now. In other words, from the moment he chose to side with Zhou Yendao 300 years ago, he had already cut off his path of retreat. Once Yi Zichen returned to his peak, he would most likely end up in an extremely miserable state. 9 deaths? Duguyunjin was somewhat hesitant. Should he return to the Holy Church and report this matter to the Divine Master? Or should he take this opportunity to kill Yi Qinchan? Chapter 809. Sir Messenger, what should we do next? Shui Ro was clearly worried. The holy sect was indeed powerful and reigned supreme in the 5 borders. However, this was the sea region, the land of the sea race. Moreover, Ziyan's name had shaken the sea region for 300 years. On the other hand, Duguyunjin was alone. No matter how powerful he was, he wouldn't be able to do much. Lord Ling Xiao, Duguyunjin pondered for a moment before looking up at Ling Xiao. "Haha, I won't be participating in the holy sect's matters. I'll be returning to the eastern border soon." Ling Xiao smiled gently. He naturally understood Duguyunjin's intentions and bowed slightly. "All right." Duguyunjin didn't say much. Now, it seemed that his previous suspicions were most likely wrong. With Ling Zhao's strength, he still wasn't qualified to interfere with the chess game set up by the Sea Emperor and the 7 demons. Duguyunjin naturally knew about Wenruyu and the others. He just didn't expect that these 7 demons, who had been in hiding for 300 years, would appear in southern border. However, when he thought of the rumors about Wenruyu, Duguyunjin understood. Since the sword demon was willing to risk his life to protect Qin Chu, this young man's identity was probably not ordinary. Now that he died in Ling Zhao's hands, Duguyunjin's doubts were completely eliminated. Ling Xiao was just an insignificant person. The ones who truly stirred up the sea region were the Sea Emperor and the 7 demons. Or rather, Yi Qinchan. Letting Ling Xiao go now might be able to temporarily attract the attention of the demons and give him time to plot against Yi Qinchan. Duguyunjin didn't believe that this successor of the ancient race didn't have some life-saving method. Only when the young man's figure was far away did Duguyunjin take out a golden talisman and hand it to Shui Ro. "Take my token and secretly return to the holy sect. Give this talisman to the first elder or the divine master." Although the saint had sent a message to summon the 3 messengers to southern border to eliminate the demons together, Duguyunjin still felt uneasy. However, Duguyunjin still felt somewhat uneasy in his heart. The fog in front of him obscured his vision, and he could no longer trust anyone. Judging from the current situation, it was impossible for him to escape. Otherwise, once Yi Qinchan went into hiding and returned to the peak, the saint would be finished sooner or later. Any expert from the foliaceae of the upper world could easily crush these Xingzhou god emperors to death. Dugu Yunjin had to go to the Ocean Emperor Palace, and he had to be quick. He wanted to delay the Ocean Emperor and defend this palace. When the experts of the sacred sect arrived, they would be able to completely exterminate Ziyan and Yi Qinchan. Yes, Sir Envoy. Shui Ro's beautiful eyes slightly congealed, but she secretly let out a sigh of relief in her heart. The fight between the two ninth-grade divine emperors was not something she could interfere with. Leaving the southern border earlier meant that there would be an additional chance of survival. Otherwise, how many god emperors would there be in the endless sea domain? Even if there weren't 1,000, there should be at least 60 or 70 of them, right? How many god emperors do we have? 1, 2, slip away, slip away. Looking at Shui Ro, who had turned and disappeared at the end of the sea, Dugu Yunjin hesitated for a moment before taking out the divine token and sending a voice transmission to Ling Xiao. Holy Sun, where are the 3 divine envoys? That's right. Although Dugu Yunjin was a loyal servant of the Divine Master and the strongest god emperor of the sacred sect, he had never obtained much authority. The reason for this was that the Divine Master was too cautious. The entire sacred sect was deceived by him. Only Dugu Yunjin knew his true identity and what he was plotting. It had been 300 years. He had personally witnessed Zhou Yendao stepping out of his shackles and becoming the sole ruler of the world. He also understood what kind of consequences he would have to bear once his identity was exposed and attracted the foliaceae of the upper world. If Zhou Yendao had not promised to help Dugu Yunjin step out of that realm once the Xingzhou continent was completely stabilized, how could Dugu Yunjin have fallen to this state where he was neither human nor ghost, forever living under a mask? They have already arrived at the border of the southern border. They should arrive in a day. On the shore of the forgotten islet, Ling Xiao raised his hand to signal Wenruyu to be quiet. Holy Sun, I have already found traces of that person. She should be in the Ocean Emperor Palace now. Also, I suspect that the Ocean Emperor has joined forces with the great demon of the southern border. Oh? What do you plan to do? I will head to the Ocean Emperor Palace now and delay Ziyan until the 3 divine envoys arrive at the southern border. I hope the Holy Sun can lead everyone to help me. Dugu Yunjin's voice was obviously serious. To be honest, he still did not trust the Holy Sun. However, if the 3 divine envoys could arrive at the southern border, the situation would be settled. Of course, given Dugu Yunjin's thoughts, how could he place all his hopes on someone he did not trust? Therefore, even if the Holy Sun really had a problem and the 3 divine envoys did not arrive at the southern border, he still had 2 preparations. The Ocean Emperor Palace was doomed. Okay. Ling Xiao put away the divine token and looked at Wenruyu with a gloomy expression. At this moment, the great demon's face was already filled with killing intent. Demonic aura surged around him, forming a demonic cloud. He had heard the sword demon's voice transmission just now. However, before he and Ling Xiao could arrive at the Green Pond Island, they received a message from the book demon. The soul tablet that the sword demon and Qin Chu left in the mountain village shattered. Wenruyu felt as if he had been hit by a heavy blow and almost went crazy on the spot. And this was the reason why Ling Xiao had to kill Qin Chu. Wenruyu, the 9-fingered Qin demon, had become famous in the Xingzhou continent. He had used the Qingxiao Qin to kill thousands of souls. Even the God Emperor realm experts could not escape from his Qin spirit. The reason why Qin Chu's divine soul was so terrifying was because he had inherited the great demon's true teachings. With his means, how could he not leave behind a soul tablet when he dared to let Qin Chu go out to train? Of course, with Ling Xiao's current cultivation, ordinary spirit treasures and Dharma artifacts could not threaten him. His true enemy was the Divine Master, a venerable realm expert who had transcended the setting of this world. The Sky Demon is the enemy of the whole world? You are wrong. In the end, you will realize that you are the one who is the enemy of the whole world. As for me, I am just walking step by step towards the peak under layers of fog. In the Azure world, even a Foliace's destiny could guard this place. One could imagine how terrifying the monstrous experts in that world were. Since he did not want to be a stepping stone, of course, he had to work hard to break all the laws in this world. Senior 1. Ling Xiao took a deep breath and turned to look at Wenryu. At this moment, the great demon's face was ashen and gloomy. Even his originally calm eyes seemed to be flickering with thousands of scarlet lights. Although, from the beginning, he had taken Qin Chu as his disciple with selfish motive. But in the end, whether it was the sword demon or this disciple, they had both accompanied him for a long time. Now that both of them had died in the hands of the holy sect, how could he not be angry? However, Wenryu could not figure out who the first messenger was talking about was. Lord Ling Xiao, are you hiding something from me? Wenryu's eyes were clear and contained a hint of coldness. In the end, he trusted Ling Xiao because of Yi Qinchan. This kind of trust was more or less subjective. But only now did he realize that from the beginning, he did not seem to have seen through this saint of the holy sect. It was easy to revere things that were too mysterious, but it was difficult to truly trust. I lied to Duguyunjin that he had already informed the 3 great divine envoys to come together. The person he mentioned should be Qinchan. Although I don't know how this matter is related to the Ocean Emperor, I think that only by going to the Ocean Emperor's palace will I be able to find out the truth of this matter. Ling Xiao sighed softly. There was also a hint of sorrow between his brows. Duguyunjin killed my disciple and brother. This hatred is absolutely irreconcilable. Wenryu nodded slightly. Holding the talisman in his hand, he finally seemed to have made up his mind. The soul light in his eyes suddenly became bright. Quickly come to Wang Yu and avenge Chu. Chapter 810. No matter how confident Wenryu was, it was impossible for him to fight against Duguyunjin with his current strength. If the sword demon hadn't died, he might have been able to fight against the first divine envoy with the 6 demons working together. But now, even if the 5 demons worked together, they wouldn't be a match for the first divine emperor of the sacred sect. Therefore, he needed to borrow some power. For example, see Emperor Ziyan. No matter how Ziyan was related to Yi Qinchan, Qin Chu and the sword demon had died in Duguyunjin's hands. This grudge was absolutely irreconcilable. As for Ling Xiao, Wenryu had his suspicions. However, the 2 of them had been traveling together, and the meeting with Qin Chu was set today. Wenryu didn't believe that Ling Xiao could do anything under his nose. No matter what, he had already entered this situation. There was no way out. The book demon had said that all the demons would die in the hands of the demon. Indeed, there were many falsehoods in this world. Fate was the hardest to break free from. However, was the demon referring to Duguyunjin or the current divine master? At the same time, golden radiance suddenly shone in front of the Sea Emperor Palace. It turned into a seal and fell toward the majestic divine palace. Buzz. However, just as the golden seal was about to land on top of the palace, layers of runes appeared in the void. A sea of lightning surged, punishing the heavens. The 2 divine powers collided, and the sea was instantly torn apart. Layers of spirit tattoos rose and fell along with the wave. Wherever they passed, living beings perished, and no reefs remained. Duguyunjin stood on top of the ancient palace with his hands behind his back, coldly looking at the place where the lightning was surging. At this time, his divine senses had already covered a radius of 100 miles. Any living being that appeared outside the array couldn't escape his senses. Divine Envoy Dugu? A beautiful figure suddenly appeared in front of the ancient palace. She frowned and looked at the cracks on the lightning array. Her beautiful eyes were filled with golden radiance. There was coldness and a trace of surprise. Why did the divine envoy of the sacred sect suddenly come to the Sea Emperor Palace and attack without any explanation? Suddenly, a black-clothed figure appeared in front of Ziyen. It gradually became clear. When the figure turned around, he revealed a gentle and clean smile. Ling Xiao. However, what exactly did he do to lure Duguyunjin here and attack her? To be able to cultivate to the level of a 9th-grade divine emperor, other than luck, perseverance, talent, and scheming. In other words, Ziyen had lived for several hundred years, and she'd seen countless higher-ups kill and toy with lower-level ants. Even monstrous geniuses with extraordinary natural talent could only submit or flee before supreme authority. He would either die or reach the pinnacle. However, ever since she met Ling Xiao, she felt that the rules of this world seemed to have changed. Whether it was the Flood Dragon clan or Yizhan, they seemed to have been manipulated by this young man and were eventually annihilated. Compared to a young human like Ling Xiao, Yizhan aside, the Flood Dragon clan, which was known as the Giants of the Sea, had a miserable ending. Not only were all the experts of the clan dead, there was actually no one left alive in the entire Dragonized Sea. It could truly be said that they had cut the weeds and eliminated the root. Regardless of whether it was his temperament, methods, or even his indifference, they all caused Ziyen, a 9th-grade divine emperor, to feel extremely uneasy. To be honest, she did not feel the slightest bit of fear when facing Duguyunjin. Both of them were 9th-grade divine emperors. If they were to fight to the death, it was hard to say who would emerge victorious. However, Ling Xiao had never revealed his strength, nor did he have any experts following him. However, Ziyen had a vague feeling that if she was unable to kill him quickly, the one who would die in the end would very likely be her. How absurd was that? Zi Huang, I originally thought that you were a smart person. Duguyunjin's eyes were cold. He had not used his full strength in the seal just now. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for this formation to truly stop him. Divine Envoy, what do you mean by that? Ziyen smiled charmingly, and her expression gradually relaxed. Earlier, she had rejected Ling Xiao's invitation to kill the first Divine Envoy and kindly reminded him that this person was not as simple as he appeared to be on the surface. However, all of a sudden, Ziyen felt a trace of anticipation. It was impossible for Duguyunjin to provoke them for no reason, and Ziyen had not provoked him. Clearly, he had only come today because he had been deceived by someone. Since Ling Xiao could trick him to come here, it was impossible that he did not have a backup plan. It had to be said that although Ziyen really wanted to kill Ling Xiao, she already felt some admiration for this youth in her heart. My holy church allowed you to unify the sea region and create chaos in the southern border. I originally thought that you would be content to be the master of the sea region, but your hands have stretched too far. Duguyunjin snorted coldly. At this moment, he did not mention Yi Qingchan's matter. If the current situation had been planned by this woman, what was the point of asking? How would she admit it? Since he had come here, he had no intention of letting anyone in the Sea Imperial Palace off. So, what was the point of asking? Divine Envoy, how do you know that I only want this sea region? Ziyen raised her brow, her smile growing wider. Since that's the case, there's nothing more to say. Last time, I spared your life because I thought that you would take care of yourself. It seems that I underestimated your ambition. Duguyunjin snorted coldly. The aura around him suddenly descended, and without another word, his palm pressed down. Boundless spiritual might poured out like a silver river, and thousands of Tao runes appeared in the air, rumbling as they poured down. As for the lightning formation that was about to collapse, it was instantly shattered by the countless Tao runes, enveloping Ziyen. Seeing this, Ziyen's expression did not change in the slightest. Lightning flashed in her eyes. Behind her, there seemed to be a demonic figure that had arrived from the ancient times, quietly standing above her head. The entire sea region suddenly darkened. Waves surged, setting off boundless waves. It was like the end of the world. Dark and deep lightning intent rose along with the waves. It was like an ancient lightning formation that swept out in all directions, suppressing everything as it swept towards where the golden radiance had fallen. Boom! The lightning and golden radiance collided with each other, and the entire Sea Emperor Palace instantly shattered. Several god emperors flew out from the palace and looked at the place where the spiritual light was radiating. Their eyes were filled with intense shock. Just the might of the battle between two ninth-stage god emperors was enough to destroy the heavens and earth. Therefore, countless experts of the Sea Emperor Palace who had yet to react were crushed into a mist of blood the moment the remnant might spread. Who dares to be impudent in my Sea Emperor Palace? A fourth-stage god emperor of the Sea clan shouted coldly. He transformed into his true form, intending to heavily injure this human god emperor while Dugu Yunjin and Ziyen were fighting. However, just as he rose into the air and opened his bloody mouth to bite Dugu Yunjin, a palm made of spiritual light suddenly appeared in the air. It instantly grew to 100 feet in size and crushed him from the sky. Pucci! A dense smell of blood spread out, and the body of the god emperor of the Sea clan was completely shattered by this palm. Vast divine might surged, and the golden radiance and lightning were finally annihilated. However, at this moment, Ziyen took a step forward, instantly piercing through the void. Her jade-like hand gently reached out, and there seemed to be tens of thousands of lightning runes in the center of her palm, transforming into 10 divine lightning towers that pressed down on Dugu Yunjin. A rumble resounded for thousands of miles, sweeping up billions of ripples. The depths of the sea curtain turned into a vacuum zone. The 10-direction divine towers finally fell from the sky and connected into a formation. It was like a prison that imprisoned the 4 seas and sealed the heavens. Chapter 8:11. Boom! The power of the heavens gathered in a single wave. Tens of thousands of strange scenes appeared one after another. Ancient monsters roared and lightning descended from the heavens, wishing to destroy all enemies. The omnidirectional lightning tower was like a heavenly palace of creation, suppressing the world and intimidating the heavens. Ziyen had used her full strength in this attack. In particular, the demonic might that came from the same source as the heavens and earth contained a wisp of true immortal will. Even Dugu Yunjin had an inexplicably grave expression on his face. When he had become famous in the Xingzhou, Ziyen hadn't had any prestige. Although demonic beasts had extremely long lifespans, in Dugu Yunjin's eyes, she was more like a junior. But seeing the divine lightning tower descending from the heavens, Dugu Yunjin felt a deep sense of unease. Buzz! A golden sun bloomed in the sky. Dugu Yunjin's aura suddenly became ancient and mystical. His eyes were deep and cold, as if a god had descended and was looking down on the world. He extended a palm containing the might of the heavens and raised the omnidirectional lightning tower above his head. Then, he pressed down with his other palm. Boom, boom, boom! The omnidirectional lightning tower trembled, and the power that was descending instantly stopped. Lightning flashed in Ziyan's eyes, and the demonic figure behind her released endless divine light. It was a forbidden sight. From beginning to end, Ziyan knew that the first divine emissary was very strong. There were many different opinions about his identity in the Xingzhou, but only Ziyan knew. If not for the fact that all the previous divine masters had come from the upper world, it would not be an exaggeration to say that Dugu Yunjin was the strongest expert in the Xingzhou. His cultivation method contained the power of heaven and earth, and he had always been able to expel evil and avoid death. Before Ziyen had become a 9th-rank divine emperor, he had already been the strongest divine emperor in the Xingzhou. Unfortunately, he had unparalleled talent, Yet he was suppressed by the Heaven Tao since the beginning, and he was unable to take the final step. Even with his cultivation, he could have ascended to the upper world long ago and opened a new path. But in the end, Lord Dugu was willing to submit to the sacred sect and stay in the Xingzhou wilderness, wholeheartedly serving the world. Ziyan naturally didn't believe this. Moreover, since he dared to betray his previous master, it meant that he had some ulterior motive. But no matter what, Dugu Yunjin's battle prowess was terrifying. This was a kind of accumulation over time, or it could be called a foundation. Suppress. Ziyan frowned slightly and reprimanded him. Demonic qi gushed out as her jade-like hand stretched out once more, causing space to tremble and time to shatter. The dragon's roar shook the surroundings, stirring up waves of 10,000 feet high. Under Ziyan's hand seal, 9 dragons turned into pillars, and like a heavenly lightning waterfall, smashed towards Dugu Yunjin. Boom! A terrifying power surged, and endless waves flattened everything. The sea curtain collapsed, and the world suddenly brightened. Dugu Yunjin's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at the 9 lightning dragon shadows in surprise. A trace of shock and doubt flickered in the depths of his eyes. In the entire Xingzhou, the number of people with the dragon bloodline could be counted on one hand. Even the number 1 demon emperor of the northern frontier had a trace of true dragon blood flowing in his body. As for the lightning dragon bloodline, he had never heard of it before. Where did this Ziyan come from? Roar. The 9 dragons descended from the sky and landed in the divine watchtower. Dugu Yunjin's expression turned serious, and his entire body was like a great sun, emitting an extremely dazzling light. The entire world was left with only gold and silver. It was as if the sun and moon were competing with each other, and the stars were falling, erupting with a terrifying momentum. Where are we? Dugu Yunjin clenched his teeth and softly shouted. A low voice immediately came from the other side of the divine talisman. Sect Master, we are 500 miles away. 300 miles. Pfft. A strange ripple suddenly came from the distant sea. Immediately after, the world within 1,000 miles seemed to fall into darkness. An extremely sinister aura spread out and disappeared in a flash. Dugu Yunjin's expression suddenly froze at this moment. Where is he? But this time, the voice transmission talisman did not shine with a trace of soul light. Suddenly, Dugu Yunjin felt a chill in his heart. The 8 great elders were all 4th grade and above. Among them, the great elder had stepped into the peak of the 7th grade. But in just an instant there was no more news. Especially that sinister and strange fluctuation just now. It was as if a demon sovereign had appeared out of nowhere and killed tens of thousands of enemies before disappearing into nothingness. How could it be? There was a great demon in the Xingzhou, but it was not an enemy. To be able to kill 8 great god emperors in a breath, that demon's cultivation must be at the 9th grade or even higher. Who exactly was it? Even with Dugu Yunjin's temperament, he still felt an indescribable fear at this moment. 9 deaths? Could it be that he was really going to die here today? At this moment, Ziyan's face also flickered with a trace of surprise. Although the fluctuation just now was faint and weak, it was extremely sinister and sinister. Demonic intent. That person had personally come? At this moment, the 2 great 9th grade god emperors were actually afraid at the same time. Chapter 8:12. The sea region was dead silent. Both humans and demons were looking in the direction of the Ocean Emperor Palace in shock. In particular, the gold and silver brilliance that resembled the might of the heavens caused a trace of inexplicable fear to emerge from the bottom of one's heart. Ling Xiao and the great demon stood side by side. Behind them were the other 4 demons. Everyone raised their heads and looked into the distance. It was not the direction of the Ocean Emperor Palace, but the place where the demonic light disappeared. Especially Ling Xiao, whose eyes flickered with a faint hint of surprise. Although the demonic will was terrifying, it was not the will of the Sky Demon. It was familiar, but different. Could it be the sect master? Senior Wen, you go to the Ocean Emperor Palace first. My friend is here. Ling Xiao frowned slightly and turned to look at Wenryu. Okay. Wenryu's expression was calm. She finally stepped forward and led the 4 demons in the direction of the Ocean Emperor Palace. He had already felt the divine power from hundreds of miles away. It was obvious that Zi Huang and Dugu Yunjin had already started fighting. No matter who it was that released the demonic will, it couldn't have been someone from the saint. Ling Xiao frowned and walked toward the sea curtain until the demons were far away. Buzz! The void suddenly rippled. A graceful figure stepped out and stood in front of Ling Xiao. Young Master. Behind her, Sect Master Taishian was wearing a green robe. He had a gentle expression and bowed to Ling Xiao. Greetings, Master. Sect Master, did you attack just now? Ling Xiao's eyes were clear, but he already had an answer. Although Sect Master Taishian was a servant of General Xielong, he did not cultivate the demonic path. Otherwise, he would not have been able to stand in the eastern border for thousands of years. But if it was not him, who could it be? The Divine Master? Attack? Never. Miss Hua and I have been waiting here for Master's orders. We have not left. Sect Master Taishian shook his head. He did not understand what Ling Xiao meant. Interesting. I did not expect that there would be people hiding in the dark other than the Saint and the Ocean Emperor Palace. The corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up slightly, but his gaze was somewhat solemn. Other than the Divine Master, he could not think of any other faction in the Xingzhou that would dare to show themselves. Moreover, that demonic will was pure and evil. It shouldn't be an elder of the Saint. However, if the Divine Master had personally come, why would he need to hide? With his strength, he would be able to crush Ziyan and the others. But no matter what, Ling Xiao was still a little more cautious at this moment. Taoist Master, if the Divine Master were to come personally, would you be able to stop him for a moment? Lord Taishian was not from this realm to begin with. It was only because he was shackled by this realm that his cultivation was suppressed to the 9th rank Great Emperor realm. Ling Xiao had witnessed with his own eyes how he killed a god emperor. The reason why he had summoned him here was to kill Dugu Yunjin and the people who had survived this battle. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. And Ling Xiao was playing the role of the eagle catching the oriole. Ziyan was a scheming woman, and she knew many things that she shouldn't have known. Now that she was in the game, there was still light and heat that had yet to be exhausted. But once she completed her mission, it would be better to kill such a ruthless and smart villain. Don't worry, my lord. Even if the Divine Master were to come personally, I am confident that I can help you escape unscathed. Lord Taishuan's eyes were calm, and Ling Xiao's worries were all gone. A realm was a supreme creation. As long as the Divine Master came personally, Lord Taishian could stop him for a moment, which would be enough for Ling Xiao to escape and save his life. This game had come to an end. He naturally had no intention of backing down. As long as he didn't die, this risk was worth it. Taoist Master, do you know the true identity of the first divine envoy and Ziyan? According to Ling Xiao's thoughts, although Lord Taishian lived in Dao Comprehension Mountain for a long time, Liang Yi was in the dark. It was impossible for him to do nothing. Dugu Yunjin and Ziyan's identities were more or less shrouded in mystery. Perhaps Lord Taishian had heard of them. Ocean Emperor Ziyan was born out of thin air. I only know that she cultivates thunder and is decisive in killing, but I don't know her past. As for the first divine envoy, my lord, I once deduced his origin, but I found that he cut off all the heavenly secrets. In the entire Xingzhou, there are only 2 people who have the ability to do this. Lord Taishian sighed deeply. He had heard of the first divine envoy long ago. Even when he came to the Shringzhou, this person was already famous. But for some reason, this divine envoy would disappear for a period of time every few hundred years. It was very mysterious. Two people. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. Which two people? The divine master of the sacred sect and the Tianji clan leader. Lord Taishuan's eyes suddenly flashed with clear light. There seemed to be a divine elephant rising in thousands of reincarnations. It was indescribably mysterious and terrifying. The divine master of the sacred sect? The Tianji clan leader? Ling Zhao's face froze. He could understand the divine master of the sacred sect. After all, those who sat in this position were all people of the Azure world Foliaceae. And this clan was once a slave clan of the ancient gods. They were ordered to suppress this world, so their methods must be terrifying. But who was the Tianji clan leader? That's right. The Foliaceae have been passed down for thousands of years. The methods of this clan are not something I can imagine. And the Tianji clan leader knows the heavenly secrets and is good at deducing the heavenly secrets. It is said that this clan has never had a successor. What? Ling Zhao's eyes suddenly flashed with a hint of surprise. They had never changed their sect master and successor. What did this mean? It meant that the Tianji clan leader might have never died. History had changed since ancient times. Who could live forever? Especially in the Shringzhou, where the heavenly laws suppressed everything, no one could step out of the divine emperor realm. How could an ordinary divine emperor realm expert escape from the laws of nature and live until now? Sect leader, I have always had a question. Ling Xiao took a deep breath. The doubts in his heart were getting stronger. The first divine envoy cut off the heavenly secrets and couldn't be deduced. He also showed his golden face, which was mysterious and strange. No one in the Shringzhou knew his identity. And now, the Tianji clan leader was revealing strange things everywhere. What was the relationship between these two people? Or could they be the same person? My lord, please tell me. It is said that the great divine demon war happened thousands of years ago. You also descended thousands of years ago. But why is it that the scenes I saw from the memories of reincarnation were so ancient, as if it was hundreds of thousands of years ago? From the first time Ling Xiao opened the seal of the demonic saber, he felt a little strange. Whether it was the memories left by the sky demon or the scenes in the ancient heaven punishment incantation, it didn't seem like thousands of years. That kind of ancient waiting, joy, and depravity seemed to be accumulated after thousands of years. My lord, actually, I also thought about this. When Long Jiang and I descended, I felt a trace of the power of the seal. But with my current strength, it is difficult to really see the heavenly secrets outside the Shringzhou. Maybe when you step out of this world, you will be able to find the real answer. Sect leader Taishian smiled bitterly and shook his head. His expression was full of loneliness. 1,000 years was originally a fleeting moment for an expert like him. But after all, he had lost his former charm. Fine. Hearing this, Ling Xiao didn't say much. He nodded slightly and turned to look at the sea below. The path of immortality was ancient and mysterious. Since Shao Qiong could extend the time of the domain for an instant, one could imagine how terrifying the power of the so-called ancient gods and spirits were. But what was the deeper meaning of their actions? Sealing time? There seemed to be an astonishing aura of conspiracy. The weeds respect the thin horse, and time has sacrificed her. The path of immortality is long and foggy. Wait for me, slowly. Chapter 8:13. Hua Hua, return to the realm for now. Ling Xiao turned around and glanced at Hua Hua in the void, then put her into the realm. Seeing this, Sect Master Taishian was stunned. He was more respectful of the young man in front of him now. Although he had sent a soul to help Ling Xiao suppress the fourth divine envoy in the realm, He did not know that the place was where Ling Zhao's will was. "Let's go. Sect Master, let's go down and take a look," Ling Xiao said indifferently. Suddenly, dense light flowed out of Sect Master Taishuan's body and enveloped the two of them, then they descended to the sea below. At the same time, at the shore of the sea, Shui Ro was in a hurry. Spiritual light rippled around her body as she flew through the void. However, just as she appeared in the sky above the southern border, her face froze. At the end of her line of sight, a white-robed figure was standing with his hands behind his back. He looked otherworldly and pure, as if he had merged with the world. "Lord Ling Xiao." Shui Ro was surprised. "You were waiting for me?" "That's right." Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. His eyes suddenly shone brightly. Streaks of soul power fell like meteors and intertwined in the sky like a huge net, trapping Shui Ro within it. Shui Ro did not react at all. She only felt the power of the world above her head, making her feel oppressed and terrified. The scene in front of her changed instantly. In a breath's time, Shui Ro was in an unfamiliar mountain forest. With Ling Zhao's current spirit realm, it was not difficult for him to take a 6th-grade divine emperor into the realm unexpectedly. On the way back from the eastern border to the southern border, Ling Xiao had left a mark on Shui Ro. Even the first divine envoy did not notice the soul-assimilating ancient technique and the 9th-grade divine spirit. Of course, even if Dugu Yunjin noticed the soul consciousness mark, he would not be able to determine who had left it behind. "Lord Ling Xiao? What is the meaning of this?" Shui Ro's beautiful eyes widened. She was panicking. Although Ling Zhao's expression was still gentle, he did not show any killing intent. However, for some inexplicable reason, he felt as if he had fallen into a shocking conspiracy. "Kill him." Ling Xiao turned his head and looked at the distant sky. At this moment, blood-red clouds covered the sky above the region, while soul light suffused the air and tribulation lightning struck down, and it could be said to be multicolored. It was obvious that Ling Tian, Xiong Huan, and the others were all breaking through. It was just that no one knew what level they would reach in the end. Boom! Between heaven and earth, demonic light suddenly became bitingly cold. Flames turned into a sea that pressed down. Xing Xin and Hua Heng descended from the sky and pounced towards Shui Ro. Even though Shui Ro was a 6th-grade divine emperor, she instantly fell into a disadvantageous position before the two of them. On the other side, Ling Zhao's original body and Lord Taishen were hidden in the void above the Ocean Emperor Palace. They looked at the scene before them, but their eyes trembled slightly. At this moment, the 10-directional divine watchtower above Dugu Yunjin's head pressed down, and the 9 lightning dragons below him interweaved into a formation, completely sealing off his path of retreat. Dao patterns surged in the formation, and the lightning radiance was dazzling. It was like a divine tribulation purgatory, making people feel terrified. However, what really surprised Ling Xiao was not the might of the lightning formation, but the demon figure standing above Ziyan's head. Dragon, lightning dragon. Ling Xiao had some understanding of the true dragon clan. This clan was lustful by nature, and it was said that they had 9 different sons. However, if Ziyan's original body was of the true dragon bloodline, why didn't Ling Xiao notice it at all? Hua might be of the dragon clan with the purest bloodline in the Xingzhou. Moreover, she was the most ancient of the dragon clan, the sky demon dragon. Therefore, Ling Xiao knew the aura and might of the true dragon clan like the back of his hand. In the entire Xingzhou, only the demon emperor of the northern border had such a bloodline. Could it be that Ziyan had some connection with him? Then what was the relationship between Shi'er and Ziyan? However, on second thought, Ling Xiao rejected the guess in his heart. Back then, he had personally heard the Golden Scale Clan Master say that Shi'er was originally a golden jade that had been passed down for 1,000 years in the Golden Scale Clan. In other words, although Shi'er was young, she had existed for a very long time. However, Ling Xiao also understood why Ziyan could see the difference in Shi-Er at a glance and accept her as a disciple. It turned out that the bloodline of these two people had a trace of the same origin. Divine envoy of the sacred sect, your time of death has come. Just as Ling Xiao was muttering to himself, a tall figure suddenly walked out in front of the Sea Emperor Palace and punched towards Duguyunjin, who was in the formation. It was the 7 demons, Zhu Dali. Although this giant demon looked rough and had a violent personality, he was usually very careful and protective of Qin Chu. Now that he saw his disciple die in the hands of Duguyunjin, the grief and indignation in his heart were already unbearable. Buzz! All of a sudden, there was a surge of blood, qi, and vitality in the vast sea. Zhu Dali took a step forward, and his whole body was covered in bloody light, like an ancient giant. Boom! Boom! A series of muffled sounds rang out in everyone's ears, and Zhu Dali's aura rose to the peak. Even compared to the experts of the sea race, Zhu Dali's blood qi and physical body were not inferior. He punched out, and a vast amount of blood qi shattered the void. Even the ground beneath everyone's feet shattered at this moment. It was as if a divine mountain had descended from the heavens and the earth, smashing towards Duguyunjin. However, at this moment, the first divine envoy's face did not show the slightest bit of panic. He had long heard of the prestige of the 7 demons, but he did not expect that instead of the experts of his sect, he would meet these 5 great demons who had not appeared for a long time. The void in front of him twisted and the sea of lightning roiled, but Duguyunjin only calmly stretched out a hand and pressed forward. The sun hung in the sky, and a might that could suppress eternity descended. Zhu Dali's face was instantly filled with fear, and he felt that the sun contained an extremely terrifying power that wrapped around his outstretched fist. As the golden light overflowed, a faint smell of blood spread out. The waves rose and fell, and no flesh remained. In the blink of an eye, the giant demon's entire arm had been completely refined by the golden sun. Pfft! Looking at the figure that flew back, at this moment, the world was completely silent, and not a single sound could be heard. Even Ziyan had a trace of shock on her face. If Duguyunjin hadn't been trapped by the lightning-trapping formation, this 6th-stage demon would have died in just one move. How could he be so powerful? Ziyan's eyes trembled, and a trace of doubt appeared in her heart. She had already heard of Duguyunjin's name 300 years ago. However, she never dreamed that the first divine emissary's combat power would be so terrifying even though they were both at the 9th rank. Everyone, what are you waiting for? If he breaks out of the formation, we will all die here today. Chapter 8:14. Just now, the 5 demons had descended. Originally, Ziyan thought that these 5 people were Duguyunjin's helpers, but she didn't expect that the moment these 5 people arrived, they would curse Duguyunjin without any explanation. Then, Ziyan understood the reason for the matter. It turned out that Duguyunjin had actually killed the sword demon and the 6 demons' disciple, Qin Chu. There were many rumors about this young master Qin Chu in the sea recently. Some said that this Qin Chu was arrogant and claimed to be a demon, but he didn't do anything demonic. Slaying demons and eliminating demons was comparable to the righteous path. Some said that this Qin Chu had a powerful background and was very likely the rumored saint of the sacred sect. Because, although he had killed countless Sea Clan geniuses, no clan dared to chase after him. As for Ziyan, her attention was all on Yizhan and Ling Xiao during this period of time. She didn't pay attention to a human youth. Previously, Ziyan had tried to find traces of Shi-Si, but in the end, she found nothing. At this time, although she didn't understand what Ling Xiao's intention was, it should be a part of this situation. If someone said that Qin Chu's death had nothing to do with Ling Xiao, Ziyan naturally wouldn't believe it. This youth's methods were really getting more and more terrifying. But, no matter what, since Duguyunjin was already trapped here, She was willing to take advantage of the situation and kill this traitor on the spot. Seventh brother, Pill Demon Fu Hongye reached out and took out a spirit pill and handed it to Zhu Dali. The latter immediately stuffed it into his mouth and forcefully stabilized his injuries. At this time, the giant demon's eyes were also filled with shock and fear. With his strong physical body, he was actually seriously injured by Dugu Yunjin in one move. The strength of this first divine envoy was really terrifying to the extreme. Let's do it and avenge Chuer and fifth brother. When Ruyu sighed softly and turned to look at Ziyan, only to see the latter smiling sweetly. Everyone, I'll help you suppress the divine envoy. With Ziyan's strength, if she used her full strength, she could completely suppress Dugu Yunjin in the thunder array. But if she wanted to attack again, she would probably have no strength left. When Ruyu nodded slightly, her eyes overflowing with thousands of soul light, a green zither appeared out of thin air. The Tao patterns on it flickered with unparalleled power. It was the famous Tao artifact of the great fiend, the Qingshao zither. When Ruyu sat cross-legged in the air with her eyes gently closed, she stretched out her 9 fingers and gently touched the strings. At this moment, there seemed to be a wisp of warmth on his face, mixed with some bone-deep gentleness. Back then, when the saber demon died in battle, he sealed his heart and focused on revenge. Now, all of his hopes had been destroyed, and the Qing Shao magic zither had reappeared in this world. Clang! A melodious sound of a zither suddenly rang out, and all sounds were heard at the same time. On the Qingshao zither, countless Tao runes instantly shone brightly. A vast soul aura surged in all directions, transforming into a murderous divine will that surged towards Dugu Yunjin. Between the heavens and the earth, it was as if there were tens of thousands of troops on a punitive expedition. Warhorses neighed in unison, and illusions appeared one after another in front of everyone's eyes. When Ruyu sat cross-legged in the void by herself, her fingers moved across the zither strings as she played a peerless soul song. The sea curtain couldn't bear the pressure and retreated like a tide. Dugu Yunjin sneered as Tao will surged around him. Boundless divine light illuminated heaven and earth. As he stretched out his palm, the golden light surged like a tide, and a terrifying power poured out in an instant. Kill! Seeing this, the remaining 4 demons attacked together. As their auras surged, the void trembled, and heaven and earth dimmed. The chess demon, by Yixian, held the black and white pieces in his hands. He casually threw them, and a killing array appeared out of thin air. It was as bright as stars, and thousands of formation runes obliterated the sky and fell from the sky. The book demon and the pill demon weren't good at killing. At this moment, they also activated their natal spiritual treasures to fight to the death. In Fu Hongye's hand, a blood sword slashed down horizontally. It was as dazzling and demonic as the sunset glow on the horizon. The sword light pierced through the sea curtain, causing endless ripples. It was extremely sharp. As for the book demon, Jian Yunliang, he held a brush in his hand and stretched it forward. Under his brush, countless divine shadows rose. The ancient demon roared, the great demon appeared, and the evil god descended. Every ferocious shadow erupted with terrifying power. It was as if they were alive and they walked in the air. The 5 demons attacked at the same time, destroying heaven and earth. Even Ziyan's eyes flickered with surprise. Within a radius of 10,000 miles, tsunamis and mountains collapsed. All living beings were annihilated. Every strand and wisp of power could cause one's heart to tremble and feel uneasy. Countless oceanic race god emperors stepped out of their territory and looked toward the end of the endless sea. Their eyes were filled with surprise. But at this moment, no one went to check what was going on. No matter who Ziyan was fighting, whether she lived or died, it had nothing to do with them. In fact, many oceanic race royalty felt a trace of inexplicable anticipation in their hearts. Once Ziyan died, they would be able to establish the rules and compete for the world. Why not? Although his overbearing methods had won the allegiance of many races, this wasn't his original intention. Ling Xiao stood in the air, looking at the chaotic battle below with a calm expression. He had planned this game for a long time. From the moment Dugu Yunjin came to the Ocean Imperial Palace, everything was irreversible. At this moment, no one asked for the reason. They only knew how to kill. The reason was because they were originally opposing existences. The sacred sect ruled the world and killed demons. Now that the demons saw hope, they naturally wouldn't let the Xingzhou divine envoy, the embodiment of justice, off so easily. At the end of the day, these people in front of him all had their own selfish desires. Whether it was Ziyan, Wenruyu, or even Dugu Yunjin, which one of them didn't have a trace of conspiracy in their hearts? And what Ling Xiao did from the beginning was to intertwine their conspiracy and turn it into hatred. Then, he gave them a suitable reason to attack. So, the dust settled, and he only needed to wait for them to fight until they were exhausted, then he would complete a wave of harvest. Sect Master, who do you think will win this battle? Ling Xiao's lips curled into a smile. His aura was at its peak and he looked calm. If Sect Master Taixian didn't know that this disaster was completely caused by Ling Xiao, he couldn't help but praise at this moment. What an extraordinary immortal young master! But when he thought that the person in front of him had planned this earth-shattering battle in just a few months, he felt a chill in his heart. 7 god emperors were his sons, and 2 of them were at the peak of the Xingzhou continent. But he hid behind the scenes, and he could do whatever he wanted. Moreover, Ling Xiao was originally a sky demon, and his talents were unparalleled. Behind him, there were thousands of demon disciples waiting for him to return. Now, with this scheme, the 9 heavens would change sooner or later. The demon sun would rise in the sky and shine on the eternal firmament. Dugu Yunjin, Sect Master Taishuan's calm voice made Ling Xiao's face flash with a hint of surprise. Why? Dugu Yunjin's means are far more than this. Although Ziyan is strong, she can only trap him now. As for the 5 demons, it will be difficult for them to hurt him. Sect Master Taishuan's eyes were cold, but Ling Xiao's eyes were shining with a hint of playfulness. What if Sect Master is included? If I fight Dugu Yunjin, I have a 70% chance of winning. If I fight Ziyan, I have a 90% chance of winning. But if I fight the 2 of them, I'm afraid that I only have a 50-50 chance of winning. If that's the case, then we will wait until both of them are injured or one of them dies first, then we will take action to end this dispute. Ling Xiao nodded and smiled with a gentle expression. But when these words fell into the ears of the sect master, there was a chill in his heart. Chapter 8:15. In the sea region, the void was shattered. The 5 demons attacked at the same time. A whirlpool that connected heaven and earth appeared within 1,000 miles of the Ocean Imperial Palace. Any living being that was sucked into it would be instantly crushed. However, Dugu Yunjin did not panic at all in the face of the 5 demons' attack. He raised the 10-directional lightning tower above his head. His other hand turned into a sun and pressed down on the space in front of him. With Dugu Yunjin's 9th stage Emperor aura, even if the 5 demons worked together, they would not be able to defeat him if Ziyan had not trapped them. The golden sun floated in the sky, flickering with divine light. 10,000 rays of divine light bloomed in the sky, clearing away the demonic clouds. The 5 devils only felt a surge of heaven and earth divine power surging towards them. Their attacks were all shattered as if they had been struck by a heavy blow. When Ruyu's eyes narrowed, and her 9 fingers moved even faster, the piercingly cold zither music turned into formless soul waves that shrouded and cut the golden sun. Dugu Yunjin snorted coldly, and golden light suddenly bloomed in his eyes. As runes spread, a golden ancient cauldron appeared and blocked the 10,000 rays of zither music. The golden cauldron stood tall in the sky, and divine light of creation shot out in all directions. Endless celestial rhythms spread out, and a suppressive aura descended. Then, before the 5 demons could react, the golden cauldron suddenly expanded and fell from the sky like a golden mountain. Not good! Apart from Wenryu, who was hiding behind everyone, the book demon and the others were already at the edge of the lightning formation. Now that the ancient cauldron was 1,000 feet tall, it was too late for them to retreat. Retreat! Zhu Dali shouted angrily, and his body suddenly rose by several dozen feet. Qi and blood surged around him like a king's son, emitting a terrifying aura. He stepped out like an ancient war god and arrived under the golden cauldron in a single step. He raised one arm, trying to lift the ancient cauldron. Boom! Waves surged, and the ground collapsed. Zhu Dali's body was crushed by the golden cauldron from the sky and smashed into a pile of flesh and blood. However, the chess demon and the book demon took advantage of this opportunity to retreat. Their eyes were filled with shock, despair, and sorrow. 7th brother. Only Pill Devil Fu Hongya let out a furious roar. Instead of retreating, he charged towards Duguyunjin with the blood sword in his hand. 6th sister. The expression of all the devils changed instantly, and Wenryu's eyes were filled with devilish intent. Her black hair fluttered even though there was no wind. Her Qingxiao Guqin was filled with killing intent, and her music transformed into tens of thousands of devils. She followed Fu Hongya and pounced forward. All of a sudden, a sword light flashed in the vast sea, and the sound of a sword chime pierced through the 9 heavens. Duguyunjin's eyes narrowed. Dao runes spread out from his palm like a dazzling sun, sweeping through the universe and reversing yin and yang. After that, under Fu Hongya's shocked gaze, he actually shattered her sword intent. Puchi! Fu Hongya's figure trembled. However, before she could recover from her shock, the boundless sunlight had already enveloped her from all directions, and it was like the palm of a god that crushed her along with the blood-red sword in her hand. In an instant 2 of the 5 devils died at Duguyunjin's hands. Boom! At the same time, Wenryu's Guqin spirit's attack fell from the sky. All of a sudden, the void became as bright as silver. Instantly, a strand of divine might capable of obliterating the world erupted with a bang, and a leisurely aura of the Tao enveloped the heavens and the earth. Amidst the haze, there seemed to be a devilish tune that came from the ancient times spreading out. The sound of the Guqin was ferocious, as if weeping and complaining. In front of everyone's eyes, there seemed to be an army of immortals and demons fighting each other, and a thick smell of blood rose from the bottom of their hearts. A dazzling starry river of thousands of feet long suppressed the ancient times, and with an unparalleled might, it completely covered Duguyunjin's figure. The entire Sea Emperor Palace suddenly fell into a deathly silence. Everyone looked at the Soul Sea that was as vast as the Milky Way in shock. Their eyes trembled, and fear spread in their hearts. Great Devil Wenryu had become famous in the Xingzhou 300 years ago and was unparalleled. A single Qingxiao Guqin had broken through 10,000 years of music. Even though the Guqin demon had lived in seclusion for 300 years, his tune still shocked the world. Even the lightning in Ziyan's eyes trembled a little. Soul cultivators were extremely rare in the Xingzhou. The human race's talent was not above the spirit, not to mention that the Xingzhou soul arts were extremely rare. However, it was unknown whether Great Devil Wenryu had obtained an inheritance or was exceptionally talented to have such achievements in this Tao. Compared to spirit aura attacks, spirit aura was ever-changing and even more difficult to defend against. Thus, if it were Ziyan who had received this attack, she would likely also suffer extremely heavy injuries. Puchi! Wenryu's face paled, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were somewhat lonely. The Guqin move just now was called Sorrow of Love, which he had obtained during his 300 years of seclusion, turning sorrow into a demon, killing heaven and earth. However, in the end, His old injuries had healed before his heart had recovered. He spat out this mouthful of blood to his heart's content. Back then, the 7 demons had sworn to die together. In the blink of an eye, only 3 of the 7 remained. Even Qin Chu had died at the hands of the sacred sect's divine emissary. If not for the fact that there was still a trace of concern in his heart, death would have been easier than living. Big brother! The book demon and the chess demon stood beside Wenryu, their faces also somewhat sorrowful. Life was already filled with storms, and all they could see was parting. Life and death were hard to predict. How could one say that they were comrades? Wenryu was silent. He gently wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth, and the soul light in his eyes had already dimmed. However, just when everyone thought that Wenryu's attack would definitely destroy Dugu Yunjin's soul, a wisp of golden radiance suddenly bloomed in the silver-white soul sea. Immediately after, a series of strange, shattering sounds suddenly came from heaven and earth. Ziyan's expression changed drastically. Lightning surged from her eyes, and even the 10-directional lightning tower bloomed with tens of thousands of divine runes. They covered the sky and earth, wanting to completely annihilate that golden light. However, even so, there was still no trace of relaxation on her face. Instead, she became even more nervous and uneasy. Boom! Finally, at the place where the sea of lightning surged and soul power fluctuated, a beam of golden light suddenly shot into the sky. It instantly tore apart everything and stood tall in the sky. Divine light scattered, and boundless phenomena began to rise. The sun rose from the east, clouds gathered, and the blue sky turned upside down. Under the golden sun, a figure gradually appeared. Dugu Yunjin coldly looked at the 3 demons and Ziyan in front of him. His eyes were ice-cold. At this moment, the golden mask on his face had already shattered, revealing an old and gloomy face. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. However, as the sunlight fell, the aura on his body rapidly rose at a strange speed. A terrifying aura spread out, stirring up the entire sea into a 10,000 feet tall divine tide. Heaven's sealing divine seal! Ziyan's pretty face was stunned, and she cried out in alarm. Soon after, as if she had thought of something, her eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of fear. Zhou Yendao actually gave this item to you? How is that possible? Who exactly are you? Hearing Ziyan's cry, Dugu Yunjin's eyes also revealed a trace of surprise. Not to mention the Xingzhou province, even the current sacred sect did not know the name of a divine master. And from Ziyan's words, he could tell that this Sea Emperor most likely knew some secrets from 300 years ago. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.